there would be this huge outcry. Keeping in mind, we do have leaders who are above the ages of 80 in our country, and we know who they are, right? I don't think it'll happen. What do you think? I think we'd come down strongly. I would think there'd be pressure groups wherever they are making a point to say we don't allow it. And that really is the point I want to bring up, that South Africa is very onside, not offside, very onside when it comes to ensuring that the legal rights of people of whichever persuasion, young, old, religious differences, cultural differences, and then age differences are protected and never harmed. I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point. Now, what's yours?
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's get to some of the big issues we must talk about today, right? And we will. We're going to talk about the British election. You may be aware there are huge changes in the British election. So we'll talk about that. There's also issues around South Africa that we must develop, that we need to pick up on, including perhaps, I want to get your thoughts upon the issue of John Sloper. There's been this huge issue that he cannot be allowed to stand for the Judicial Services Commission, serve on it, because he himself was impeached. And the argument is that if he's impeached, how does he get in a position where effectively he'd be amongst those who be recommending other judges as well? And that's just a complete no, right? So that's the second one. And there's more, I mean, that I'd love you to just comment on, right? But we'll talk about Britain now, so maybe we'll just pick up on that just now. But any of the other issues, well, one of the things that we must talk about is come out of what's happened in the city of Johannesburg around the water issues, and you know it continues. It's like day 10, 11, I can't keep track of it. And it's 100 days now with Eskom, no load shedding, right? But on the water part, it's very clear from the conversations we've had that there are people in cities, in municipalities, in towns around the country that do not have water. And I want you, because we're going to talk about it just now, I want you to tell me once again, if you are in a region where there's extended days of no water, what is the issue there, so we fully understand it. And then we want to effectively keep an eye on no water and raise that, okay? So keep that in mind. Let's now move on to certainly one of the biggest issues in the country, in the world, which is this change of power, change of leadership and in the United Kingdom, in Great Britain, right? So Keir Starmer officially been appointed as the leader of Great Britain. This is after his party, the Labour Party, returned to power. They were in opposition for 14 years. The Conservatives entrenched, so to speak, effectively what is a snap election, giving them a month notice. Well, they've lost out on that. So let us understand this. We chat once again to Musa Mdunge. We chatted to him the other day, remember? He's a political analyst, South African political analyst, but based in the University of Dundee in Scotland, a PhD candidate there. Musa, as always, good chatting to you. You're on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon to you and to your listeners.
Good afternoon. Right. So we're going to give you the big responsibility of helping us understand what has just happened in the UK.
So, basically what happened, in the UK over the past 24, 48 hours is that, Labour Party, which had been in the opposition benches, as you had put it, for the past 14 years, returned to power. And this followed after just an election ago in 2019, where the Conservatives won a landslide majority of 365 or so seats. And in many ways, the Labour Party were routed in that election, where they only achieved 202 seats. So to move from within 5 years from 202 seats and to more than double what you got, to a point where you're at 412 with 2 seats remaining that have not been declared yet. This is a very seismic moment for the United Kingdom, for the Labour Party. They've had many challenges following the years of their former leader, Jeremy Corbyn, whom really took the party towards the far left. And in many ways, that alienated independent voters, moderates, those who prefer parties that speak to the center. Well, what Sir Keir Starmer has managed to do in the past 4 years of his leadership, starting back in 2020, is to really, purge the party of the Corbynites, but also to redirect the party towards the center, to look more unified than what the Conservatives were looking. Let's not forget that in 2022, we had 3 prime ministers in 1 year. And so the goal for Sir Keir Starmer was to present a party where the center holds and really look as a different picture to the commotion, the mess, the factionalism that has defined the Conservative Party for the past 14 years and more so for the past 5 years.
All right, let's just pause there for a moment, because let's reflect on what you just said. So we do have this new leader, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, of the UK, Keir Starmer, or Sir Keir Starmer, as some may call him. But in terms of his acceptance speech, this is what he said.
If you voted Labour yesterday, we will carry the responsibility of your trust as we rebuild our country. But whether you voted Labour or not, in fact, especially if you did not, I say to you directly, my government will serve you. Politics can be a force for good. We will show that. We've changed the Labour Party, returned it to service, and that is how we will govern. Country first, party second. Yet, if I'm honest, service is merely a precondition of hope, and it is surely clear to everyone that our country needs a bigger reset, a rediscovery of who we are.
Okay, well, that's what he said. Often I always look at this, Musa, and look at what leaders say when they win an election. Did he say anything? We've just played a bit of the sound bites. Anything come through in his acceptance speech?
Well, look, many people have often, asked the question of who is Sir Keir Starmer? Will he reveal himself to us? Will he let us in towards who he is, what shapes him, what drives him, where is he trying to take the country? And certainly what one notices in this particular speech is he was much emboldened than he has been on the campaign trail. And that is a good signal of a leader who is coming to the realization of the moment, reading the moment for what it is, because in that very clip that you just played, he recognizes that in as much as the Labour Party have come in with a landslide majority, what they haven't done is to really convince the British people to vote for them. In other words, if we look at the nature of this particular vote, it can really be defined as an anti-conservative vote. And the mere fact that, Labour Party only achieved 34% of the vote share, which in fact is lower by 6% to what Jeremy Corbyn managed to achieve in the 2017 elections, where he got 12.8 million votes versus what they've managed to achieve currently at about 9.4, 9.5 million votes. So in actual fact, moreover, if you were to just combine what the Conservative Party got at about 6.4 million, what the Reform Party, who is a huge part of this election story, got, which is about 3.4 million, the combination of the two takes you at a point just at about the Labour Party. And that is, in essence, the story of this election throughout the different seats that were and the constituencies where elections took place, is that in most cases where the Labour Party won, it was because of that split between the Reform Party and the Conservative Party. And so he read the moment well to say he's not only going to advocate for the policies that would ensure that those who voted him continue to trust him, but is going to endeavor to serve the British people in a manner that convinces all other British people who did not give him his vote that he leads for them. And I think that type of a message is quite on brand with what he has said he'll propose to bring service back as the center of governance to bring humility, to remove the drama from politics. That's going to be essential. There's been a lot of that in the past 5 years. That's basically where Keir Starmer is trying to take the country.
Now, interesting. I mean, you made the point about they want 36% of the vote, right? But they've obviously got enough seats to win the election. It's clearly run very differently to South Africa, and this is very constituency-based, right? Whereas in South Africa, 36% would be even lower than what the ANC has got in this election. Yet we're talking about the party that now runs the country. So how does that play out? That means they won the majority of seats on a let's call it a constituency or a suburb basis, for want of a better word, right? And that gave them enough. Does that suggest that they do have a broad base of support then anyway?
Well, look, I mean, the way British politics is constituted is that you have two parties that dominate the politics. So in many ways, it's always a swing between the Labour and the Conservative Party. And so even when we frame this language of blue wall seats versus red wall seats, that only is to speak to where has the vote swung to. So traditionally, but in this election, for example, there were about 89 seats that were a toss-up, where who would lead or win was really not known. And that played a huge part in how this election went. So yes, the Labour Party have broad appeal. So does the Conservative Party too. But in this particular election, what won the day was people's, lack of hope in the politics of the Conservative Party, whom, by the way, have dominated British politics. But
Absolutely.
they've never been routed in the way they've been routed since 1906.
Absolutely.
So this is going to definitely bleed them.
All right. So very quickly, one short answer: where to from here for the Conservative Party?
Well, it's a moment for them to rebuild. Rishi Sunak has resigned, so that means a leadership campaign needs to be set. But first, they need to then set up the 1922 committee that is then going to be able to decide on the rules for leadership campaign. And then we'll see where this goes. Either they'll stick to the center if the moderates win the day, or they will take what the Labour Party did when they were routed, where they went to the far right. And that, I think, may not work for them.
Let's leave it at that. Musa Mdunge, I appreciate your time. There you are. That's the UK for you.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
What is Ushuni, you say? Ushuni has a musical gift and can transform a song. Ushuni can fuse folk music with a popular urban beat or tune. Ushuni can take us on a beautiful musical journey. Ushuni way to Gelo. Join us in unearthing South Africa's next folk music star. 40 talented contestants from around South Africa competing for the ultimate grand prize of 500,000 Rand cash and a recording deal. Angeke basikhone with Ushuni Womhlaba, starting 7 July, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on SABC1.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Nelson Mandela once said,
It is in your hand to create a better world for all who live in it.
SAFM urges you to identify those in need around you and to do what you can to make a difference to them. Tata Mandela went further to say, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we led. SAFM celebrates Mandela Month. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so that's one really interesting conversation with Musa Mdunge. Feel free to comment on what he said and what he described as the maturity of British politics, right? You can connect with me, WhatsApp, text or voice note, also the call in 086 000 2032. Otherwise, just tweet out. Some people are just tweeting out right away. It's probably the best way. Quick, I can see that all the time. Just use that hashtag, the National Pulse. Now, we take the story further because that's just one part of it. The question is, what does it do in terms of one of the great things about the British politics is, the sense of when is the time to quit, right? So we understand that Rishi Sunak has quit, and this happens in a matter of hours after the results come through. And the question is, when is the right time to quit, and what does it do for the reputation of the individual or the party? So with me is KG Mkhwale, who's a communications and political campaign strategist. KG, thanks for joining us on the National Pulse. Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Good to talk to you, man. So the question we've been asking, when is the right time? When is the right time to quit? But I'll tell you what. Before we get to you, let's play this. Obviously, a soundbite of significance from Rishi Sunak.
To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry. I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change, and yours is the only judgment that matters. I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss. To all the Conservative candidates and campaigners who worked tirelessly but without success, I am sorry that we could not deliver what your efforts deserved. It pains me to think how many good colleagues who contributed so much to their communities and our country will now no longer sit in the House of Commons. I thank them for their hard work and their service. Following this result, I will step down as party leader. Not immediately, but once the formal arrangements for selecting my successor are in place.
Okay, there you are, Rishi Sunak. So, KG, what do you make, first of all, of his, the very opposite of acceptance speech, a concession speech, and with lots of apologies and I'm sorry?
Well, just to go back to what Musa said, I mean, absolute, signs of maturity, not only in a leader, but in the kind of democracy they have themselves. He goes on to say, I take responsibility. How many times have you ever heard that in Africa, not let alone in South Africa? We've got leaders that have actually taken us for a ride for years, but they've never apologized to anyone. Actually, they've gone on to try and actually ask us to give them third, fourth, fifth time an opportunity. But you know what we can learn there, not only for leaders, but also as voters. When people became totally disappointed in the Conservatives, they did not stay away. They did not stay at home. Even though they only got 36%, you must remember the difference is in the electoral system, which theirs is constituency based.
Yes.
So maybe it's something that we spoke about the other day. Maybe it's something that this democracy will have to think about going forward. Because I might not be impressed with political parties, but I might be impressed with a Temba in my local area who happens to represent not only an ideology, but we see him as a leader that can actually turn things around. And I think we're gonna see more of this in Europe, where, for example, Tony Leon's party hasn't been in government for 14 years. I'm saying Tony Blair hasn't been in government for 14 years, and because post-COVID, Ashraf, things have been difficult for a lot of people, even in developed countries. So people are actually looking for leaders or parties that sort of represent a new way of doing things, that literally taking them out of difficult economic situations. But I don't know if we will ever get to this point when KG has been leading and can come on a national public and say, I have failed you, and therefore I am stepping down. I don't really see that happening. We've seen how the government of national unity is all being about, I give you this, you give me that. It's never really about to say, well,
because I think you're right.
To serve the people.
If you look at even what we've had in our country right now, I mean, besides the MK party that's come from nowhere to garner 14% of the vote, the DA sort of stayed where they are. The ANC massively dropped 17%, and the EFF they couldn't take advantage of a very, very vulnerable ANC, right? And forget all the other parties.
But
just
you know
those
why?
three. Yeah. But the point I want to make is none of them conceded that, hey, we missed out here, right?
You know, the problem is, I tell even my EFF friends, you cannot just drastically come and move quickly to the left without support. You know, the system is in the center currently. What you do is that you go inside and therefore begin to work on your agenda. You asked Musa a question about the future of the Conservative. I don't think they will try and go to the left, but they will begin to try and pull everyone else into the center, trying to rebuild the party as it is. EFF did not only lose that opportunity in the country because of their ideology, but they were not talking to anyone except for their membership. You know, so you're not voted into government by members of your party, because no political party has got 10 million members, by the way.
Yeah, good point.
We've got supporters. Even ANC doesn't have those numbers.
All right.
So what you need to do, you need to begin to talk to the nation and actually rally the nation behind your ideology, not necessarily trying to represent a party with just an ideology for the party itself.
And just very quickly, we're on to news time already, so quick answer. When a party leader says, I'm sorry, how does that come across to the public? Very quick answer.
Very sincere. And therefore, he gives his party an opportunity without him.
Okay. Gives an opportunity without him. That's a very important statement made. KG Makhwale, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for that. We'll have a podcast of that conversation and the previous one that we've had with Musa Mdunge up very, very shortly. Let's get the news headlines now. Just go on 3:30 with Daneo Matawung.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 3:30. The ANC Youth League in Gauteng says none of the appointed MECs by Premier Panyaza Sufi are below the age of 35. In other news, City of Cape Town authorities say 113 people at Tafelsig in Mitchells Plain have been affected by strong wind gusts overnight. And European leaders have criticized Viktor Orban after it was revealed that the Hungarian Prime Minister had arrived in Moscow. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. If you're on your way to Durban, just know there's been a long day of a steady stream of delayed traffic between Hammersdale and Keyridge. That run down through the construction around Cliffdale is very, very slow. I think it is just volume. Maybe an additional lane closure has gone in today, but if you are Durban bound, it is very slow. Also, the Durban bound carriageway, the N3 between Pavilion Mall and Spaghetti Junction, also very slow. Of course, a lot more traffic into Durban for the big Durban July event. Staying in the region, the N2 North through Queen Anne's Drive up towards the Commercial Highway is very slow, and the M4, the Southern Freeway, that road has been reopened after this morning's truck fire, so no further issues. You come out of Durban towards the Umbilo area. Joburg today, crash on the N3 South at Rand Airport interchange, so the run through Germiston being held up. Northbound, it's quite a heavy backlog as well through Heldenace up towards Galuli's interchange, and motorists leaving the airport, the R21 North up through the roadworks towards Bobsfontein Road is quite a heavy queue today. Cape Town looking okay ahead of rush hour, the main rush hour. The run out through Hospital Bend is okay. Kubo interchange also looking half decent as well. And if you're on your way out of town for the weekend, the N2 through Somerset West and over Sir Lowry's Pass looking okay. There are some roadworks on that section of the N2 between Botrafia and Caledon, closer to Caledon, but there are some delays both ways out that way. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Chumi, my mind is on, there's a quarterfinal of the European, Euro 2024. There are, in fact, 4 quarters. And there's a big rugby game. What else am I missing? There's Tour de France, there's Wimbledon. Am I left anything out? What are you starting with?
Literally touched on almost everything, but I am starting off with the Euros. The Euro quarterfinals are taking center stage tonight with the host nation, Germany, to lock horns with Spain to kick off the business end of the tournament. They are the 2 most successful nations in Euros history with 3 titles each, and so far are the tournament 2 highest scoring teams, with Germany on 10 goals and Spain on 9. But the big talk is around Toni Kroos, who looks to hang up his boots after the Euros. And if Germany actually wins this tournament, he could technically become the first German to win the Euros while not contracted to a club. So looking forward to seeing how they're going to perform this evening. Kickoff for that match is at 6 p.m. And then also another interesting one is Portugal facing France at 9 p.m. where Kylian Mbappe will meet up with his idol Ronaldo. Meanwhile, England midfielder Jude Bellingham has been handed a one-match suspended ban and fined £25,000 for a gesture during the Euro round of 16 win over Slovakia. Staying with football, South African Football Association President Danny Jordan says that it's important that Bafana Bafana build on the momentum of the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations tournament and qualify for the 2025 edition of AFCON in Morocco. Bafana returned from a bronze medal from the AFCON tournament in Cote d'Ivoire earlier this year, and Jordan says that consistency would be the key word in this qualification campaign.
This draw is different from previous draws. You find that the teams are spread and more groups are created, and therefore more teams participate and more teams have opportunity. And I think that there's going to be quite some interesting results. We must not look at the teams. There's going to be quite some interesting results that I think for ourselves, I think we must just focus and win the games at home and make sure that we go back. It's important that we build consistency of performance in Bafana. It's very important. So we look forward to this campaign, and we hope that Bafana will qualify.
Then moving on to cricket, the Proteas women are in action today. India won the toss and they chose to bowl first in their first of the 3 T20 series. And just keeping you up to date with live results, South Africa currently sitting on 5 for no loss after in 1 over. Meanwhile, former South Africa fast bowler Charles Langeveld has been appointed as Zimbabwe's men's national team bowling coach. SA's Ravish Gobind and Kurtley Diesel will also join Zimbabwe as strategic performance coach and strength and conditioning coach respectively. Then SASCOC have confirmed 27 additional names to Team South Africa for the Paris Olympics, and that list includes the Blitzboks, who qualified for the Paris Olympics after winning the World Rugby Repechage tournament in Monaco. Team SA is looking to compete in 19 of the 32 Olympic sports on offer, and British Open champion and SA female golfer Ashley Buhai will make her Olympic debut, and looking forward to that. Then let's just take a look at tennis. Wimbledon, to be exact. Carlos Alcaraz in action against Francis Tiafoe, and just looking at the results on the go, Tiafoe is currently leading that first set 7-5, and then Roberto Bautista is also leading 7-6 in the first set against Fabio Fognini, and they currently are battling out for the second set. We'll definitely keep you up to date with the results as they come in. My name is Dumin Kapele. I'll be back in an hour.
So just touch on the so the rugby must be sold out, right? That's a given.
It's getting there. It's getting there. A lot of people have been saying that, listen, I just got a ticket. I was talking to someone yesterday and I was like, how? But yeah, I think it is.
I mean, Oliver Dixon, I've been listening to him in the morning on the SFM Sunrise Show, has been singing a song all week that he's like marching to Loftus. You know that song, We Are Marching to Pretoria? Is like marching to Loftus. So anyway, okay.
Looking forward to it. Are you going to be watching?
I'll be watching. Not at the game, not physically at the stadium, but I'll be watching that and swapping between that and the Euros. And keeping in mind, it's a week on that Saturday tomorrow since South Africa lost that Cricket World Cup final. Oh, okay. More sport in an hour.
The Rockets are taking their game to another level. They welcome the top league German outfit FC Augsburg to Mzansi, Africa. Mpumalanga province will vibrate with 2 spectacular matches between TS Galaxy and FC Augsburg. Will the German outfit travel back to Europe with gold? Or will the boys of Team Sukazi demonstrate what home ground advantage looks like? This is the inaugural Mpumalanga Premiers International Cup. Do not miss out on 2 spectacular matches between TS Galaxy FC and FC Augsburg on back-to-back Saturdays, 20 and 27 July at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, we're going to talk about that very disturbing story of this youngster, 19-year-old, assaulting his grandmother in a video that went viral. We're going to talk about that in a minute or two. Let's get some voice notes. There's been comments about, the British election and the US that we touched on earlier on. Yes.
Hello, Ashraf, your team and the listeners. With regard to the President of United States of America, I really don't care. However, the question I always ask when the age of the current president come up is that where is the vice president? Where is the vice president? Surely this is a time for her to step up. Isn't the vice president is the reason to have them on the first place?
Interesting point. I think she's being civil. Okay, I'm not particularly a friend or a fan of her or Biden or Trump or just about all the American politicians. But remember, she was asked in a really extensive interview on CNN about just that, about Biden's effectively no-show in terms of where he is. And she was very, very cagey about it because she couldn't say much more than that, right? That means it's difficult to defend her party leader, who's the president, where if he drops out, you'd expect her to be the president. I think she's waiting her time. And I think the bigger question is, why are the party leaders, why are the Democrats still allowing Biden to still be in the position that he is, keeping in mind that the longer that he stays on, the better the chances that Donald Trump, remember him, will win in a landslide. So I think, okay, here's some more comments on some of the other issues.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and SAFM listeners. Great words by the new British Prime Minister that it's supposed to be country first and your party comes second. Well, we will see by how he does with his cabinet, but unfortunately for us in this part of the world called South Africa, it has always been party first, country second. As we see in this government of bloated unity that was meant to keep the ANC intact. So, politicians like telling us what we want to hear, and it is always the naive that buy into this nonsense. Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Okay, Lionel got that. Yeah, all right. I hear what you're saying. I don't have to add to that. We've had lots of conversation about the bloated cabinet, which allowed, in fact, as part of the GNU, just to allow spaces for everybody. I thought one of the most interesting comments came, and I'm loosely translating coming out of that, is the minister in the presidency, Kumbuzo Nachibeni, in fact, being quoted as saying the voters are to blame for the huge expense of the cabinet. Can you quite understand someone even saying that? That essentially this is it. Because all of us, you and me, didn't vote for one party to get 50 plus, we've now got so many parties, and therefore the government of national unity, and therefore to keep that unity, the government united, that grouping had to have so many extra people. So you know what? It's our fault. I'm sure you have an opinion on that. I want to know. 086 000 2032. Is it really our fault that the cabinet's so big now? You see what you and I did? Think about it. Let's get back to the UK elections once again.
Ashraf, Atlego here in Cape Town. My pulse is on the elections in the UK. Rishi Sunak is my new role model. The man got into power, became richer than the king while he was in power, and decided to call a snap election knowing very well that he's going to lose, so that he could escape the madness of British politics and go and enjoy his wealth with his wife. That's a man I should look up to. Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness, you make me laugh. Really, you make me laugh. Well, look, no, he's not my role model. I think his politics stinks, according to me. But maybe just the one point of correction. I understand from what I can gather that he was fabulously wealthy long before he even got into politics. That's the part I understand. So he doesn't need to enjoy his fabulous wealth by stepping out. No, I believe that he has been fabulously wealthy before. But yeah, snap election, he's out of power. His party's out of power. He couldn't do anything else but resign. But in South Africa, we don't do that, do we? Let's get another one. Nandipa, hi.
Hi there, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Good to connect with you. Go ahead. What's your point?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on what you just talked about. The minister in the presidency saying that it's our fault that the cabinet is so bloated.
Yeah.
I was just taken aback by that analysis. Because there was just no need to increase the number of posts. It was just proportional allocation as per the percentages of the parties. But I think the reason why politicians feel so confident to come and say such things on the air is because our journalists, they don't really ask them, and probe them when they say such things, and that's why they feel so confident to say that.
But do you think that's true that our journalists don't probe them? I mean, I'm not live in a one-on-one with her, but if she said that to me now, I mean, I would say, but how do you blame us? You blame us for having choices when, say, your party doesn't provide us a reason to vote for your party only. That's really the essence of the story, isn't it?
Yes, but I mean, there should have been a follow-up there to say, but that still doesn't justify the expansion. You should have still stuck to the 65%, and just reduce what the ANC, the DA, and everyone is getting instead of adding more financial burden to the taxpayer, because that's the essence of it.
At the moment, the problem is in the National Assembly, it's not so much who's in the cabinet, it's who's out of the cabinet. That's the minority. I get your point, Nandipa. Thanks for the call. Enjoying that conversation. And do it again. Let's see it, right? Wandisile in Umtata, hello.
Hi, good Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Go ahead. What's your point?
I'm good, man. Ashraf, about the Biden situation, I think what the deputy president is doing, they're actually doing that on purpose to put him against Donald Trump. I think what she's waiting for opportunity to take over. She knows that what they try to do is to embarrass him. So I think that's the whole strategy, man, because it's not like anyone cannot see something wrong with it.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, from a distance, it's so obvious there's something wrong, right? But I mean, here's the point. I'm not too sure if I heard you correctly. Are you saying her strategy is to keep him in power? But first of all, I don't know whether it's her strategy or his strategy. I think in the USA, it's the machinery. There's a whole group of people that decides what to do. So they will decide when Biden gets out on whether he stays on. But the question is, why would they want to lose an election? It's clear they're going to lose an election if he stays on.
Yeah, but then again, if you think about it, I think they're probably giving him a month or 2 months for Hillary to come in, because remember now they're putting him in the spotlight, knowing that he's not well, and everyone is seeing him to scrutinize him, so they're obviously going to scrutinize him that he's not well. Then she's going to come in as a replacement. I'm not going to be surprised. Maybe in a month or 2 months they're going to come up with the story that the president is not well and he cannot continue in his position.
Okay,
I think that's actually the strategy that they're using now. Remember, within a party, there's only two parties. right?
Okay.
There's people that support the deputy, there's people that support the president. So I think the camp of Hellovi, they know what's wrong with the president, and they let him be so he can go and mess up his own campaign. I know he's going to affect their team negatively. Then again, she's just waiting on the sideline to take over.
Okay, you sound like a party political strategist. Maybe we could hire you as a consultant. You never really know. Thank you. I'm not too sure whether you meant, did you say Hillary Clinton or did you say Kamala Harris? Because Kamala Harris, of course, is the deputy, the incumbent deputy, and you would think logically if anybody has to become the president of the party, it would be her and not anybody else from the outside. But, who knows how the American politicians think? I really don't know. There's more calls, more comments. And maybe just the last one I want to play very quickly about Donald Trump.
Hi, Ashraf. Errol from Durban, yeah? Now, look, can you imagine, if Donald Trump wins the election and after 5 years makes a bit of a mess up and this and that, can you imagine him apologizing to the people of America, saying he made a mess up and he apologized? Certainly I can't see him. Errol, Durban.
Of course I can't see him. I can't see him apologizing. I agree. But which politician in South Africa, to bring it back home, can you actually see apologizing when they've not delivered for their party? I'm not talking of personal issues. I'm talking about and their role as a leader of their party. There's someone, and I want to know.
It's Truck Month at Ford, and that means one thing. You save big when you upgrade to a 4x4. For a limited time only, get a Ford Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month. Visit your nearest Ford dealer to get the best deal on a Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month with free 4x4 driver training. TNCs apply.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Okay, lots more to talk about, but just while we're at it, I think you need to remember this too, right? The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from the 10th to the 12th of July. That's coming up next week, right? So that's in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. So tune into, two shows, The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. That's myself, so now you know, right? Tune into the show. We'll cover it to get insights, fabulous insights I would expect from the conference.
You're listening to The National Pulse on SAFM.
Well, can you Google like everything? Can you Google all languages? Can you Google all places in the world? Can you Google in further South African languages? Maybe not up to now, but here's an extension. There's news that Tsivenda as well as Siswati have been added to Google Translate, which brings the numbers of locally supported languages to 9. So that's significant. And it's certainly a move to ensure that there's universality around what Google does and how it impacts our lives, and perhaps we with them, right? Sia Madikani is with me, Google South Africa's communications manager. Sia, welcome to the National Pulse. Hi.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Afternoon to you and your listeners.
Thank you. So I look at it. I mean, with the additions of these two languages, that is significant. Was it very difficult? Because I'm thinking now, you've moved one language, two languages, now you get up to 9. Is it that easy or difficult to get to 9?
It's not easy, but it is doable and something that we relish doing.
Yeah. So what prompts you then to make a decision? Because look, obviously from a South African perspective, the common sense thing for us is like have every single one of our official languages up on Google Translate. That's what we'd like, right? But from your side, how do you make these calls in terms of what do you do and what don't you do?
It's quite a process. As you know, we've been launching quite a few languages across the world in terms of translate, as technology improves and as AI sort of improves and comes to the fore. As you know, we launched Palm 2 earlier, late last year, which is a language model that allows us to do much more. And so, as part of our mission, which is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible, we really just gone out there and added a few more languages across the world, 1,000, using this new technology that allows us sort of to interpret in a multi sort of lingual, using sort of different computing methods in machine learning, and it's really allowed us to sort of expand the offering that we have in terms of language, and which really is a key thing we know and we take very seriously from Google, as it allows more people to access technology and become part of sort of the technology space, really helping digital transformation trickle along and increase in speed as it includes, it adds more numbers of people who are able then to engage with the internet and be part of the world,
And therefore, practically up to now, I mean, anecdotally, maybe even with data evidence, what can you tell us about the people, not just in South Africa, but around the world, that actually uses Google Translate and how it has changed their lives?
Yeah, Google Translate, as you know, allows a lot of things to happen, but mainly interactions across people who wouldn't be able to normally be able to converse with each other. You are now able to, as a course speaker like myself, travel to Japan and have a conversation, just with the use of had people who actually been touring different countries, being able to hold down conversations and create friendships just because they're able to use Google Translate, punching what they're saying, the other person punches what they're saying, and they're able to share sort of what they're saying to each other in using Google Translate, whether that's in English or in any other language that's common amongst them. And it really allows access, as I said earlier, but also allows sort of interactions in terms of economic interaction, economic involvement of people who were maybe previously marginalized. And so really it narrows the gap. And that's really what we aim to as well as Google as part of our helpfulness sort of pillar that we drive as part of our mission.
I mean, share with us the technology that goes into getting this right, because obviously you want to get the purity of the language and then the purity of the translation, right?
Yeah, as I said, Palm 2 is what we call this technology that's behind this sort of next generation of language model, which is aims to improve. It's multilingual. It improves. It's sort of improved multilingually. It's improved in terms of reasoning, and it's also improved its coding capabilities that builds on sort of Google's legacy of breakthrough research in machine learning, as well as responsible AI. As you know, we very much are big on responsible AI, so we sometimes roll these things out slower than other people would, just because we want to make sure that they work. And Palm 2 is really an upgrade from Palm, what you'd call Palm 1, which is quite a significant improvement in terms of what we are able to offer in terms of language translation.
Okay, fascinating. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned the Palm 2, but also, I mean, the rise of artificial intelligence must sort of ensure that your product is better, but competitors do the same things, right? I mean, where do you see the next things happening? Because I'm getting a sense that the rate of change with regard to using technology as an enabler is just frighteningly fast.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it is the time of AI. There's a lot of changes, and as I said to you, from our side, we're really just about doing AI responsibly. We're really excited, like everybody else, but we're rolling out our products, as you would know, in a very responsible manner, making sure that it meets some of our society's sort of critical standards in terms of ethics. We're trying to make sure that AI remains ethic as we progress and as we bring in new products. And it's the same with Google Translate. Last year we introduced 22 languages into the continent. Now back again this year, we've introduced these two sort of languages in South Africa, which is Siswati and Tshivenda. And now that brings up the number of South African languages that are available on Google Translate to 9, and previously, meaning that there's only 3 that are not at the moment part of that suite, right? Because that would now leave Sindebele, Setswana, as well as sign language being not part of that. But really, we are working on the progress, and we're excited about what's to come. But as I said to you, we're taking our time to make sure that we get it right. And Palm 2 the strength of Palm 2 is allowing us to sort of do much more so in terms of coding, in terms of multilingual, and how it really works is that Palm 2 actually breaks down these whatever prompt someone puts in. So let's say you put in an idiom, it does better than Palm 1 in terms of being able to read idioms and understanding them and being able to give a better sort of analysis in terms of what that means. So we're really excited, and we think and hope that South Africans can really take these tools up and use them. And it's really, as I said in the beginning, that it's really a big part of closing the gap in terms of what technology can do.
I completely agree, and all I can encourage is more and more South Africans to maybe even use that as a way of learning other languages. Let's leave it at that. Sia Madikane was Google South Africa's communications manager. So there you have it now. Chivenda as well as Siswati added to Google Translate. That's now 9 South African languages that you can put in there to translate into another language. Chivenda to Spanish, for example. Right. Further comments about on many of the big issues. Right. Here's one on Britain again.
Good afternoon. This is Makwarela Chinyazo from Toyambo. Now that the Britain has the new prime ministers, now because the previous prime ministers have been very vocal, in supporting Ukraine's condemning the Russians, But now what will happen under the new prime ministers? Will he offer the full support to Ukraine like the previous minister? I don't think so. And now that this new minister, it looks like Ukrainians may find themselves fighting their own battle alone, and also they are also facing the risk of losing another ally like the United States, whereby Biden is facing a competition whereby he might lose election in December, and then when Trump takes over, he made it clear that he will never support Ukraine, will never fund Ukraine.
Well, you're giving half questions, half comments, and we don't know. I mean, that's really what it is, isn't it? We don't know. Not just Ukraine, but also the issue of Israel-Palestine will come up once again. I think both sides sort of have supported the Israeli view at the moment, so I understand. But I stand to be corrected. Let's see how that plays out in the days ahead. Let's get the news. Before I get to the news, let me tell you, interesting things around the politics of conflict and conflict resolution coming up with Andre Flock right after the news. Do not miss that. Right, Danayo's taking over. It's the news desk at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories, aka murder extradition case postponed and strong winds wreak havoc in Cape Town. A very good afternoon to you. The Manzini Magistrates Court in the Kingdom of Eswatini has postponed the extradition application for the Ndimande brother accused of being involved in the killing of Kiernan aka Forbes and Tebelo Mtswane to later this month. This after the defense abandoned its application to be provided with further particulars by the state. Among other things, they were demanding to be furnished with the content of the murder case docket. Siabonga and Malusi Ndimande are wanted in the country for 4 counts of murder, attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The arguments on the main extradition application will now be heard on the 29th of this month. The ANC Youth League in Gauteng says none of the MECs appointed by Premier Panyaza Lesufi are below the age of 35. Lesufi announced the 10-member executive who will form part of the government of provincial unity. All the 7 ANC MECs are from the previous 6th administration, with the rest being from the IFP Patriotic Alliance and Rise Mzansi. The Youth League held a media briefing in Johannesburg today. Gauteng ANC Youth League's Ntsako Mkhobe says it is disappointed by the exclusion of young people.
The Youth League is deeply disappointed and strongly condemns a decision by the ANC to consciously exclude young people in the executive under the age of 35, ignoring the fact that there are capable young people in the legislature under the age of 35 who will then lead to the call for youth development. To call on the Premier and the ANC to give these young people more responsibilities and positions of influence in all corridors of power who are in the legislature, so that they are able to be at the center of youth development in the province.
Moving to Limpopo, several properties were burned down by an unknown arsonist at Mulitlade village, Zebediela, outside Polokwane. Affected residents say the arsonist is targeting parked vehicles and houses at night. So far, 10 cars, including dwellings, have been set alight in the past few months. Some of the victims, Anna Tenge and Tepisho Lishilo, are calling on the police to act speedily.
I was sleeping at around past 3, I guess, past 3 to 4 in the morning. And then I just heard a little sound outside, like something is running, like maybe a dog is running over a bucket or something. And then I woke up. When I opened the window to check what was going on, as when I saw the flame of the fire burning underneath the car.
So around 2:10, I heard something like my car moving or starting the engine. When I flip the curtain, I found that my car is burning.
Meanwhile, police spokesperson Malesela Ledwaba says they are investigating.
According to information, the female owner was asleep when she was awakened by the explosion. She went outside to investigate and noticed that the white Nissan Navara, which was parked next to their house, and some property inside their house were on fire. The complainant requested assistance from neighbors, and they immediately contacted the police and members of emergency fire brigade, who managed to extinguish the fire. The motive of the incident is currently unknown.
In the Western Cape, City of Cape Town authorities say 113 people at Duffelsig and Mitchell's Plain have been affected by strong wind gusts overnight. The Weather Service earlier issued a level 4 warning for disruptive rainfall and level 6 warnings for damaging coastal and interior winds. Disaster Risk Management spokesperson Charlotte Powell.
The city's Roads and Informal Settlements Management Department are also conducting assessments in informal settlements in Dunoon, Strand, Kailicha, Belgravia, Overcome Heights and Guguletu, following reports of flooding. In Salaris Pass village, an assessment found that 80 informal structures have been impacted by the rainfall overnight. The city's humanitarian relief partners have been activated to provide soft relief in the different areas. The Disaster Operations Centre has also received reports of flooding of formal structures in Sea Point, Sea Wings and Masipumalele.
Lastly, European leaders have criticized Viktor Orban after it was revealed that the Hungarian Prime Minister had arrived in Moscow. Orban is a staunch ally of Vladimir Putin, but this week he took over the European Union's revolving presidency. EU politicians have been quick to insist he has no mandate to represent them in Russia. The BBC's Stephen Rosenbeck has the details.
This visit has infuriated Brussels. The leader of a country which just days ago took over the EU's rotating presidency has flown to Moscow for surprise talks here in the Kremlin with President Putin. The Russian authorities, always keen to claim that attempts by the West to isolate Russia have failed, will be well aware of the optics. Viktor Orban is one of the most pro-Russia leaders in Europe. He has described this as the second stop on a peace mission. On social media, the president of the EU Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, wrote, "Appeasement will not stop Putin."
Recapping the top story this hour, the Manzini Magistrates Court in the Kingdom of Eswatini has postponed the extradition application for the Ndimande brother accused of being involved in the killing of Kiernan aka Fops and Tebello Motswani to later this month. Headlines at 4:30 for SAFM News. I am Dino Mataung.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Box squad all set to end Irish hoodoo. Parker appointed head coach of TS Galaxy Diski team, and Garcia expelled by WBC after racist comments. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And Friday afternoon, bringing a bit more volume around Pretoria. The M1 under a bit of pressure from John Foster up through towards the Rigel Avenue exit. If you're Durban bound, leaving Pietermaritzburg, it's been a solid queue all day today through that new construction at Cliffdale. So from Hammersdale through towards Key Ridge. Just in that Cliffdale area is very heavy. Burning vehicle at Winkelspruit on your way to Durban. So there's a bit of pressure on the N2 coming off the south coast. And further up the N2, there are delays through Spaghetti Junction to Westwood Mall. Then from Inanda Road through Queensland Drive towards Kormarshu. That's quite heavy. And Cape Town, 2 hold-ups on the highways. One on the N2 outbound. It's a crash before Jan Smuts Drive in the Pinelands area. That's pushing traffic back through Hospital Bend, affecting Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound, affecting the M3 inbound, and affecting the M5 south with a queue through Maitland to try and get into that N2. And if you're on your way into Cape Town, the stationary bus just by the Justenburg exit, 1 lane open, and that is pushed N1 inbound back towards the Klippevel Road, Stellenbosch off-ramp. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
Hi, my name is Jackie. I'm 35 years old from Pretoria and I only pay 691 Rand for my 2022 Ford EcoSport with OUTsurance Comprehensive.
What makes the best car insurer? The best price with awesome service, right? SMS out to 30754 to see if you can pay less, experience awesome service, and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted best car insurer by many publications and best car, home, and business insurer at the News 24 Awards for the past 2 years.
I am not surprised they won all the awards because in my experience they are excellent.
They walk the talk. They actually do what they say and they follow through on their promises.
SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself. Experience awesome. Go to outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Lights, camera, scalpel. Every second counts, and every cut, every thought, every action is critical. Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Okay, you should make a note of this, right? The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place, next week from the 10th to the 12th of July. And that's in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocking Africa's Growth. So tune into 2 shows, The Full Circle with Bridget Masenga, and then this show, The National Pulse. I'll be hosting it to get really great insights from the conference and perhaps good ideas for you as to how you can unlock Africa's growth and perhaps take advantage of that as well. So like win-win situations.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, we've hit 100 days with no load shedding, thanks to Eskom. I'm just saying that. We've got there. There's lots of debate about, power failures, I get that, and load reduction, but by and large, load shedding as we know it has hit the 100-day mark. There's been celebrations, and let's hope that continues. The celebrations and the extended play without load shedding, right? Let's talk about our politicians. So, one thing is what we've seen unfolding regarding the government of national unity and the different parties in parliament and the others outside and the squabbling and the arguments that take place and the negotiations to strike a deal. But it certainly got us thinking as a team here on the National Pulse to say, what about political conflict? How do politicians deal with conflict? And is there a manual to do just that we're not seeing? So we thought let's find out more about it with Andre Fluck, who's a conflict and employment dispute specialist. Andre, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Ashraf,
yeah,
to spend time with you.
I know, much better than being on a Twitter X platform, I think. I'm just making the point. Anyway, right, okay. So you've got this responsibility. We thought we'll ask you about this. First of all, do you know whether politicians have a handbook or a manual in how to deal with conflict resolution as one politician versus another in South Africa?
There's nothing, Ashraf, that we could call a code or a manual. In my work with politicians through the years, there are memos and standing orders and written and verbal instructions and understandings and so on, but it's very bits and pieces, and it depends on who's in charge, who's in office, and the situation itself. I'm also not sure that we need a manual. I'd like a different type of conflict coaching and training than a manual. The manuals elsewhere don't seem to work. So
what should replace it, if not a manual? Because I'm looking at it on the basis of what I see now. Now, I understand that negotiations are tough and parties drive a tough bargain, as they should do, right? Understandably so. But what we've also seen is a lot of conversation in the last week or two where politicians seem to be stating their case through emails, through social media platforms, and you'd wonder, like, why would they do that? Because that just adds to the sense of conflict, isn't it?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. It's got two parts. I would think that firstly, as a nation, we're a bit squeamish with conflict. Some of us have very outdated rules as to what's polite and what's necessary and so on, and that doesn't always help us. Conflict needs to be aired. It needs to be properly escalated. There are rules, and I can teach you that. Conflict experts can teach you that. But then on the other side, and that's maybe the second part of your question, Ashraf, is there's also a very much a wrong way of doing conflict, and we've seen that in the last few days. Some rather awful examples of that. And some of the politicians I speak to, they say, "Yeah, but we know what we're doing, or this is the way it's always worked." Sorry to say, but it's not really. We are the citizens of the country. We're the ones who bear the fruit of your conflict outcomes. So certainly, if we could start working towards a manual or a code or training of some sort, it could never be uniform. It shouldn't be uniform. Every situation is different, but certainly our politicians. They all seem to run their conflicts out of some unspoken manual out of the 80s. It's very outdated. And not, I'm not wagging my finger at them. It's for them. It's for us. They are different. They are better. The science has moved on so much, so quickly in the last few years, and none of them seem to be aware of that.
Well, maybe touch on that. So, how has the science moved from the way party political managers or leaders would communicate with each other, say, 20 years ago versus now?
If we go back to your 20-year mark, we'd find a lot of the conflict manuals, the conflict coaching, and in the real world, in diplomacy and so on, we'd have a philosophy of compromise, of meet you in the middle, of being polite and being nice, not nearly a set of table rules. That has moved on. Conflict management at this stage is not just one discipline. It's a cross-pollination, a multidisciplinary science involving everything from philosophy, neurophilosophy, social science, so many things. And that has led to a very different way of approaching conflict, helped by science, helped by hard science. None of this, let's be nice, let's sit around a fire and be friends. If you do this, then that happens. And none of, especially, for example, I write about this quite often, identity conflicts in our country. We are so splintered into so many identities, and that takes a very skilled hand. It takes a specific knowledge of how to persuade people, how to not offend people, how to motivate people, and our politicians are breaking those rules on a daily basis. It's bizarre to see and frustrating.
So just reflecting on what we've observed, say, in the last month, right? And I don't expect you to talk about everybody, but just some key bullet points in terms of what you've seen from politicians. And if you wish to name names, please go ahead and tell us, what you've seen, politicians, parties, what they've said, what they haven't said, that has got you thinking to say, come on, guys, that's not the way to do it.
Again, and I need to be very clear on this, Ashraf. I'm not saying we must play nice. This is a hard game. Politicians have a very, very hard game. I understand that. I take part in it. I coach some of them in this, but it's not about playing nice. It's about being efficient. And that is the frustrating point. If you want to persuade South Africans, at this stage, there's a right way to do complex conflicts and there's a wrong way. And the science shows us that if you do it wrong, if you do identity conflicts wrong, you entrench people in their bad behavior. You entrench people in their opposition. We need to break down so many walls, and the way we do our conflicts, as we've seen in the last month that you mentioned, the way we speak to each other, the way that, there's face saving that's simply not understood. Their boundaries being broken. It's this old-fashioned, hard man type of conflict. Run to Twitter, say a bad thing, insult an opponent, gather the likes, and yay, I've won. That is not where we need to be. We really deserve better. And our conflict management from our politicians. And let's be honest, as consumers of that, we strengthen them in that. We like their bad behavior. We reward their bad behavior.
How do we do that? How do we reward their bad behavior?
We give them 500 likes on a rude tweet. We never, when we speak to them, when we vote for them, there's no consequences for bad behavior for most of our politicians. There's an art, there's a science to conflict that could persuade the first party, whether they're a small one or a big one, the first one that really gets modern conflict down as an art and as a science will have measurable and manageable results. I'm waiting for that.
Is there
truly that will be the party that leads us to where we need to be.
Well, here's your last loaded question to you. Is there any party in South Africa that's close to that at the moment?
I'm speaking to several of them, and there's an organizational problem. Individuals are very keen on it. They want to get going, but some of the parties, the old ways are difficult to move.
But why would they be difficult to move? I mean, surely they would understand that the world has absolutely moved on, and business, or let's say a mobile phone has come about at a time when landlines existed only before. Things move and change every day. Why would parties be that naive?
We're a very patriarchal society, and we like the old ways. If Andre's way of dealing with conflict may be more efficient, but it doesn't feel as good as shouting at you and insulting you. Once that efficiency becomes necessary, once we start holding them to a higher standard, such as the European diplomats, this is not sales talk. This is science. Go read about it somewhere else. Go and view it somewhere else. Our politicians will get there, I have little doubt, but at this stage, the old ways, the shorty, stabby, the 80s ways, it's simply too popular. And as I say, I think we are the consumers of that. We're a part of the problem. We reward it, we cheer it on.
And you say the rewards get you lots of likes. So there you are. Andre Flock, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Feel free to, by the way, tweet out maybe some of the pieces that you've written. I'd love to share that as well. Just tag me as well as SAFM Radio. Much appreciate your time. Andre Flock, Conflict and Employment Dispute Specialist. So that's one dispute, I suppose. What about the dispute of water? There's a sense that South Africa's water shortages are even bigger a problem than load shedding problem. And I'm telling that to you on a Friday. That should just break your heart. We'll talk about it next.
The Rockets are taking their game to another level. They welcome the top league German outfit FC Augsburg to Mzansi, Africa. Mpumalanga province will vibrate with two spectacular matches between TS Galaxy and FC Augsburg. Will the German outfit travel back to Europe with gold? Or will the boys of Team Sukazi demonstrate what home ground advantage looks like? The This is the inaugural Mpumalanga Premiers International Cup. Do not miss out on 2 spectacular matches between TS Galaxy FC and FC Augsburg on back-to-back Saturdays, 20 and 27 July at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hello everybody, Winter M over here. Very excited to be on the biggest show on television. Deal or No Deal Celebrity, coming to you every Saturday, 6 p.m. on SABC 1.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to the Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
So we've made a point of firstly discussing the water crisis in the city of Johannesburg purely because of the significance and the symbolism around what Johannesburg or Gauteng means to the rest of the country. And you find that so many suburbs in that city without water, and they continue having no water for the better part of 10 days now, maybe even more. It's actually ludicrous. But then we find, maybe ludicrous is a very soft word, then we find that just throwing it out anecdotally and getting people to respond. We've had people from, Verulam, I think it is, some people in the Free State, others in the Eastern Cape, others in the Northern Cape saying, hey, we got the same problems. We got the same problems in our towns, in our municipalities. So the big question really is how big a problem is our water problem. Shafiq Adams is with me. He's the Executive Manager responsible for Water Resources Management at the Water Research Commission. Shafiq, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners.
Thank you so much, Shafiq. Right, so how big a problem is it, firstly? Do we have a water problem?
We will always have water challenges just by the nature of our geography and where we're located and how we've developed our infrastructure and where we settled and the like. So the challenge is then how do we move that water around and how do we make sure that you get water to everyone? And I think that's part of the challenges that we're facing at this stage. But I wouldn't say it's critical at stage, but of course, as you indicated, it's all about my reference. So if I do not have water, it impacts me severely. But on a national level, I think we're doing fine. But when you drill down to a very local level where services are delivered, I think this is where the wheels are coming off of it.
So, I mean, look, you like you're saying, maybe geographically the nature of shortages are a problem. But I certainly remember growing up as a lightie. I mean, it's not like we had water shortages as a lightie. That means government somehow manages the problem as that's what government ought to be doing anyway, right? But now you're having situations where in big metros, in smaller municipalities, in towns around the country, not only are there slight shortages or moments of nuisance, but there are actual no water issues going on for days on end. And in some cases, I find it hard to believe when people say we have no water for a month. I'm like, honestly, you're talking nonsense. But then they say it's true.
Yeah, so, and indeed, and I think, as I said, it's the way we have to start, or where we start to distribute the water. So if you look at, for example, if you go to the national dashboard, our national dam level status is at 85%. So we have water in storage. But how do you get that water in storage? Through the treatment plant, into the reservoirs, and into to the consumers. And at that last mile is where the problems start. So the issues around the infrastructure integrity, the issues of theft and vandalism, the issues of high water use. And part of the problem is also that as we've expanded, so if you follow how we've been urbanizing the metro areas, the reservoirs in which we are pumping our water into, it's not grown at the same rate. And so you don't have that buffer. So I think that, I don't know what the operating rules are, but I think it's something like 48 hours of water that so if no water is getting pumped to that particular area, you should have a 48-hour buffer, but that buffer cannot be maintained because the balance is skewed towards the use side rather than the production side.
So having said that, I mean, would I be on the mark to say that no matter what the mitigating issues are, right, that a country the country that we live in, we should not be in a position where a city or a metropolitan community should be without water for a day at a time? It's just, no matter what the situation is, can it ever be acceptable?
It can never be acceptable because we say water is life, and the problem with water is, well, relative to the energy. So the energy, you have other sources. There's no substitute for water, and so you need to get to better managing that and to better get on both sides of the spectrum, both from a governance perspective, but also from a user perspective, and especially in some of the metropolitan areas that the usage is just too high for a country that does not have enough water in overall in that setting.
All right, and just to end with, I mean, I understand that there were many water experts that gathered in Durban recently for the Water Institute of Southern Africa's biannual conference. Right, what's come out of that? Because I'm interested in knowing the relationship between, say, government, business, civil society, in ensuring that we don't have what is an obvious thing. Now, it's a problem bigger than load shedding potentially.
Yeah, so one of the outcomes is that so they have a kind of a naval approach to it. It's all hands on deck. So everyone needs to make sure that how we invest in water, how we use water, and how do we manage, and how do we, one of the key issues that we are seeing is the issues of skills. And not skills in the private sector, but skills at the local level, and again at that last mile. What are the skills, and how do we bring all these parties together to start bolstering that and then get us on the right path? Because water, essentially, although it comes from a valve system, it needs to be managed locally. So if you look at, for example, the issue of non-revenue water, it needs to be managed within that system once it's pumped into the municipal infrastructure, and those numbers are just terrible at the moment.
Okay, we're on to news time very quickly. What for you is the one thing that must be dealt with, like, urgently?
So I think it's what we need to do urgently is we need to, because part of the bigger problem, and there's quite a few of them, is we need to get on to the adaptation. It's similar to what energy is doing with mitigation. So we have this phrase that says, water is to adaptation, what energy is to mitigation. And if you look at it, the money that's going into mitigation, the numbers have been recently 81% of the money is going in there. And into adaptation, where we deal with water, it's only 12% and 7% with new benefits. So you can see how we skew it towards the energy side, and the water issue is not getting the required investment. And
absolutely.
Ultimately, when you look at the root cause analysis, is what investments are you putting in to build the systems upwards?
And no wonder we say, give me water. We certainly need water. Shafiq Adams, Executive Manager responsible for Water Resources Management at the Water Research Commission. Much appreciate your time. Let's get the news headlines now with Daneo Mutawung.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 4:30. The MK party has vowed to appeal the Electoral Court's ruling on the matter between the Electoral Commission and MK party interim youth leader Bonginkosi Khanyile. The firebrand youth leader was slapped with a 150,000 rand fine earlier this week for remarks the judge deemed could cause unrest. In other news, it is back to the drawing board for the National Union of Motor Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, after the Labour Court earlier granted the Ford Motor Company in Silverton, Pretoria, an interim interdict ordering striking workers to return to work. And the Manzini Magistrates Court in the Kingdom of Eswatini has postponed the extradition application for the Ndimande brother accused of being involved in the killing of Kiernan, aka Forbes, and Tebelo Motwani to later this month. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There's a lot of traffic on the N1 getting out of Joburg to the north today. Destination Polokwane for a lot of motorists. There's queues really from sort of Micro and Woodmead all the way to Samrand, then from John Foster in Centurion up to Garsfontein, and a bit of pressure. It has been busy at Pumalani Plaza over the last few hours as well. Breakdown on the N1 south before the four-ways exit. That's pushing traffic deep back into Buccleuch interchange territory today. If you're on your way to Durban, it's been a steady flow of delays through the roadworks between Hammersdale and Key Ridge. You will sit there for an extended period today. The M13 from the top of Fields Hill, jammed on your way to Hillcrest. That is a crash scene near Maytime Stores, just past the golf course there. And the reason for the big backlog on Durban's N2 North is a breakdown before Kwamashu Highway, and that traffic parking back heavily towards the Umgeni Road exit. Cape Town today, crash on the N2 out of town. In fact, there are two problems. One is a broken down vehicle in the middle of Nelson Mandela Boulevard, outbound at Hospital Bend. So you queue out of the CBD on the N2, and then once you get past that, you stay in traffic all the way through to a crash before the Jan Smuts Drive exit. Behind that, the M5 coming through from the Kubo. Get a chance to hop into that N2. It's quite a heavy backlog as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, our Minister of Sport is to me, no matter what others may say. What are we talking about now?
We start off with rugby, where Springbok fly half Andre Pollard says that it will take full effort for South Africa to beat Ireland in Pretoria tomorrow in the first of the two tests against the Irish. The Boks have not beaten Ireland since 2016, and if Ireland wins, they will topple South Africa in the world rankings if they manage to beat the Springboks by more than 15 points. Meanwhile, Bok assistant coach Tony Brown says that the Boks always have a play style based on physicality and wants attack to complement it more.
Yeah, well, obviously it's never an easy team to play against, and it's definitely difficult to coach against, especially if you're coaching Japan. But South Africa have always had a style of play that's very, very hard to stop. It's based around physicality, it's based around being dominant in the set piece. So for me, around where can we go with our attack, I think we can do some amazing things if we keep that physicality, keep that domination, and then try and evolve around attacking a little bit more space more often, and trying to get the players to understand how we create that space and then what we're required to do to attack it.
Meanwhile, 6 players will make their debuts for the Willie Engelbach captained Western Province in the Currie Cup clash with the Bulls in Cape Town on Sunday. Western Province began their Currie Cup campaign with the North-South Showdown, which kicks off at 3 p.m. on Sunday at the DHL Stadium. And John Dobson says that while there are a few players pulling on the blue and white jersey for the first time, there's still a pleasing amount of experience among the matchday squad. Then in news just coming in, Bernard Parker has been appointed the head coach of the TS Galaxy's Diski Challenge team. Just last month, he was saying that he's weighing his options on whether should he continue playing or go into a coaching role. And now there you have it. He's going to be a coach. And this year, it marks 20 years since Parker turned professional. He played for a number of teams, including for Benoni Premier United, and also had a stint in the Netherlands also, and obviously we saw him plying his trade for Kaizer Chiefs as well. Right now, he says he's quite excited to take up that coaching role, and he currently holds a CAF C license coaching badge, and says now he is focused on getting his CAF B license when the time allows. Staying with football, SAFA CEO Lydia Munyabau says that the postponement of the 2024 edition of the CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations has negatives and positives. The Continental Football Governing Body moved the tournament from July this year due to the Olympic Games in Paris to July 2025. And speaking exclusively to SABC Sport, Munyabau says while the delay will give coach Desiree Ellis some time to start building a new team, it has on the other hand stopped the momentum the squad had gained over the last 2 years since winning the competition.
There are positives to that, and then there are negatives to that. The positives, it's about giving Coach Desiree more time to increase her pool of players and get them playing regularly with each other to build chemistry amongst, the young players that are coming in and the older players that will be available for selection come 2025. But, at the same time, it means that you're losing on the momentum that you had building from the past 2 years, after winning the WAFCON in Morocco. But I think it's a matter of us looking at the positives, and also giving the team enough opposition for preparation so that, they can play top quality, nations in preparation of that. And come Morocco 2025, then they are ready to defend their title.
In the meantime, Jude Bellingham has been cleared to play in England's Euro 2024 quarterfinal against Switzerland by UEFA. The England midfielder, who scored a sensational bicycle kick in the last 16 victory over Slovakia to take the tie into extra time, was investigated by UEFA over a gesture that he made after his celebration. Bellingham has been handed a suspended one-match ban and a 30,000 euros, which is around 592,000 rands fine. And UEFA says that the ban is not immediately enforced and is subject to a probation period of 1 year. Then keeping up with the action that is happening between South Africa, Proteas women, and India in their first of the three T20s. South Africa currently sitting on 129 for 1 after 14 overs. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour. I am Dumin Kapel.
Tell me something before I let you go. How much significance should we look into the Springboks Island game?
I mean, it's like a revenge kind of a clash because obviously the Springboks want to beat Irish, and it's a very interesting rivalry that we've seen between the two sides. Someone was dubbing it war. Literally, they're going to war
Ireland,
tomorrow.
And I stand to be corrected. I think they were like the world's number one team officially for a good few years and unbeaten for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So going into the World Cup, they were like the top ranked team. I stand to be corrected.
Well, now South Africa is the
That's
top
changed,
ranked,
right?
and if Ireland beats South Africa by 15 points or more, they're going to go to the top of the world
Here's
rankings.
my one thing. Whenever people say that the Irish will try and win to gain revenge for another defeat, or the All Blacks will defeat the Springboks and that will be sweet revenge, my reaction is always, that's just nonsense. It just is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. You win on the day. If you win again 2 years later, you won 2 years later. That's it. There is no revenge in that because you cannot compare the two.
I guess.
That's what I think. So even if the Irish win, which I hope they don't, it has got no relevance on the fact that we are the world champions. I mean, that's the bottom line to it.
That is the truth.
Right, more sport in an hour.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to the markets with Paswane Mpatlele, as always, Senior Portfolio Manager at Markway Fund Managers. Right, give us an update on the local and global markets, Paswane.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and happy Friday to everyone listening. Looking into the markets today, it was continued lower volume we've seen from yesterday, and global markets therefore traded rather mixed, supported by the bad news is good news development we've seen coming in with the economic data coming from the US, where that they showed more evidence that the US is going through some continuous weakness as we go into Q3. The wage growth slowed down, unemployment ticked up slightly up to 4.1%, and the job added last year, the last 2 months were revised lower. Although for this month of June, they showed that the jobs added were more than expected at 206. But currently, the view is that these current numbers are of the Fed's view that they should be starting to cut, and that's why we're seeing your bond yields across the board coming lower and bringing the pressure to the dollar weakness. And these developments have therefore reinforced the view of the start of cutting cycle in the United States, and it is a rather very positive for risk assets. Meanwhile, we also saw that in the political development, we saw that the centric left, the Labour Party in the UK election, they won vigorously, outcasting the Conservative Party after 14 weeks, and this was taken with a positive light as they continue to hinge on the economic growth policies they'll be pushing forward. And the investors are also expecting to see some of the France development coming out this weekend, where the right wing might come out as the victorious on the polls. And these developments, when we look at them, and then its impact on commodities, we are seeing the gold price was up 1% at $2,380 an ounce. Platinum was up 2.5 at $1,027 an ounce.
copper 2% up at 4.6. Oil managed to a slight tick up of 0.2 at $87.57 a barrel. And just general looking at the equity space, US comes back on today. They were mixed. The Dow was down 0.2. We look at the Nasdaq up 0.4. S&P was flat. Europe sees a mixed picture there. The FTSE and the CAC was down 0.4, while DAX managed to eke out 0.1% gains. JSE was down 0.3, but still looking positive for the week. Today's support was under the resource sector up 0.9, while industrials and financials were down 0.5 and 1% respectively. And when we look at the currency space, the rand is relatively weaker today, but it's sitting at 18.27, rand against the euro 19.76, and rand against the pound 23.37, Ashraf.
Right, thank you so much for that. Have a great weekend. I'm sure there's nothing else to report about for the rest of the weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday. I'm sure of that. Paswani, thanks for that. So yeah, hope it's all magic for you. Let's get on to other issues then. So let me tell you, we are going to chat about. Someone made the point. I'm trying to think about it earlier on, saying, Ashraf, you know what? The MK party, and I can't find that comment now, but the MK party are the opposition party, and there's been hardly anything discussed about them. It's just about other things, and now you're talking about John Slope. So, well, I'll tell you what, I think the reason there's been such a focus on other parties is because other parties now, effectively, as part of the government of national unity, they've got their ministers, and there's been a huge focus on the new ministers. So I think that makes complete sense to me. Having said that, there's been this conversation about John Slope, and we'll talk about him and whether he should be part of the Judicial Services Commission. It's a hot topic that comes up after 5. Do not miss that. Right, let's get on to other issues of importance. I mentioned earlier that we're going to chat to Steve Letsika. That got delayed a bit, so let me give you some context to all of this, right? There's been a video that shows a pensioner being beaten up, right? And of course, it's been on social media. It's gone viral. Now, earlier today, the person who allegedly beat up the pensioner is a 19-year-old called Luvo Ngaza, and who apparently is the grandchild of the pensioner, so I understand. And that appearance was made at the KZN Magistrates Courts. Now, that's the one thing. The bigger issue is, why does this even prevail, and what do we do about it? Okay, so with that in mind is very topical. We chat to Steve Letsika, the newly appointed Deputy Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Steve, good chatting to you. I should say Deputy Minister this time around. Hello.
Good afternoon to you and to the listeners of SAFM.
Yeah, we haven't connected in a while. That is COVID time. It's a long time ago. Anyway, you've got new issues. First of all, what do you make about? I mean, you've obviously seen the video. What do you make of what you saw?
Look, I think we've always had these kind of problems before, where we see challenges of this nature, where older persons are vulnerable, and they've been regarded as vulnerable, and that's why there's an Older Persons Act that seeks to protect and really promote their rights and their well-being. And seeing that video, it actually depicts exactly the experiences of older persons across the country, where their own grandchildren or even their children to some extent will victimize them, will abuse them, will take their social security grant and really just physically assault them. And unfortunately, that was a ticking bomb that was supposed to come out in public to realize that let's pay a closer attention the way we have, but we must do it more faster and really attend to the issues experienced by older people.
I mean, you're right. There can be the isolated case. Not that it's ever justified. It is actually never justified, right?
Yeah.
But there can be isolated cases. But there is a sense that with people, when you have a 19-year-old beating up an 82-year-old grandmother, the law doesn't come into the discussion in that moment when he chooses to beat her up, isn't it? So the point of legal checks and balances to say, if you do this, this will happen to you. I don't think that person even considers that as an issue. It's a case of, I do what I want.
Well, I mean, look, I think we must also really pay a closer attention to some of the issues that, that young people today are faced with. Alcohol, substance use and abuse are one of the biggest issues. And how we have seemingly normalized violence. I went this afternoon to visit Ugogo, and really, I mean, we spoke about a whole lot of things about her, being an 82-year-old and where she has been in the country, and how lovely and bubbly the grandmother is. But, I think if you then depict the experiences of bringing up our own grandchildren, and when they retaliate and they don't want to go to school, and we actually deal with, some of the challenges is that when they drop out, what else will they be doing except getting involved in all the wrong things? And that's exactly some of the things we need to tackle as society and as government, to work hand in hand to really dealing with this, so that younger people, not only do we want resilience, but we want young people who contribute to positive outcome and prosperity.
Well, I'm going to say it's easier said than done, because if I asked you, so what can we do differently, it probably would be the copy and paste of a question I may have asked you if I saw you 10 years ago, if you get my point.
Indeed. I mean, look, one of the things for me, and I really feel you've got a young 19-year-old who's unfortunately got himself into the wrong thing. And Gogo was saying to us, unfortunately, he really finds himself abusing substance and so forth. And when you look at it, you can really see the main thing is to really attend to their own rehabilitation. Secondly, psychosocial support. Thirdly, let this young man be reintegrated within the education systems. Whether it's skills building or whatsoever, because the livelihood of this young man can't be the same as we have currently. It will continue if nothing is stopped. So we want to prevent future kind of abuse and vulnerabilities that other people will experience. So we need not only just to pay attention, we will pay attention to through psychosocial support, the CAN support, as per the guidelines and our own policies stipulate when an incident of this nature happens. But also you need to pay attention to the young man. He's a young person. And our mandate as a department to saying pay attention on youth. So we need to really think about how we fast track and advance our attention on young people, including dealing with the issues of drugs and substance abuse.
So when you say pay attention, I mean, give us a practical example of what it means to pay attention to that person.
Absolutely, there are a lot of programs that are led by our government. There are lots of programs that are led by community and civil society, NPOs. And those programs need to be enhanced. Upload on board young people to these programs. And young people need to adhere to the rules. It's not just a 5-minute thing. If I give an experience, just about 15, 16 years ago, I used to work for Department of Social Development. And I can tell you, we worked on programs that were supporting young people living and working in the streets. And I really connected with some of the young people, and I was asking, why are you living in the street? Why are you staying? And some of them ran away from home. Some of them, poverty mindset also redirected them differently. And it's some of these challenges. But the programs of skills and training, the programs of work, the program of education saves a day. And that's what we need to be doing. And job opportunities that President Ramaphosa is focusing on in terms of creating job and opportunities for South Africans is exactly what we need now more than ever. And I think for us, from an advocacy point of view as a department, that's what we are paying attention to.
Well, you have lots of work to do, and I'm sure about that as this 7th administration kicks in. And hopefully we'll talk to you and the minister and have some really good news around these issues in the months ahead. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Big challenges, Steve Letsike, Deputy Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Have you seen that video of this 19-year-old? What's the right word? You'd say klap, right? And the Afrikaans word, like effectively murring his granny. And he's in court. But it's just the most terrible thing to see and to do. What do you feel about it? What would you do if you saw someone in your circle doing something like that? What would be your response? And then do you look at are there factors that contribute to that, or do you take it in isolation, which is simply like, no man, you're crazy, you can't do that type of thing? Or do you say, help me understand you, because I need to understand what is it that triggers you to do that what you do. Well, linked to that is another issue that is a concern, right? 2/3 of South African children going to school, they have to walk to school every day, and I think many of them long distances. I'll take your calls and talk about that as well after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, so there's a survey that's been put together. The 2023 General Household Survey, 15.4 million school-going children in South Africa. 2/3 of that 15.4, so like 10 million, they have to walk to school every day. And they're not walking around the corner, they're walking further distances. Does that have an impact on them? Absolutely, it must, isn't it? Education activist is Hendrik Makaneta. Hendrik, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much indeed for having me.
Thank you. So, firstly, when we say 2/3 of school-going children walk to school, can we put a distance to that?
Distance.
In terms of how far they walk?
Yes, of course. Well, the distance ranges, there are learners who walk a distance of even 10 kilometers from home to school, especially in the Eastern Cape province. And there are others who actually walk even more than 10 km. So others, it might be less, depending on how far the school is. And we've always called on government to find a way to resolve this issue by making sure that the National Scholar Transport Program is rolled out. But what makes things difficult at times, especially in the rural parts of the country, is the fact that you sometimes find that there are, infrastructure is also lacking, especially where there are rivers. Because there are also learners who have to cross a river just to get into a school.
Now, I mean, my concern about this is, one thing is in apartheid South Africa, when you say quite bluntly, honestly, apartheid South Africa wouldn't care two hoots about the majority of the people of the country. We have a democratic country, 30 years into democracy, the 7th administration kicking in, and these type of conversations come across to me, no matter whether we're living in a big city or in rural or community-based areas around the country, this should not be. It speaks to neglect, isn't it?
Definitely. I think that you are quite correct. Perhaps we can give credit where credit is due. I think that in the last 30 years, we can safely say that there are areas where government has been able to try to resolve. Even the issue of the National Scholar Transport Program, it has actually made significant progress in addressing scholar transport challenges in some of the areas in the country. But I think that there are still areas which have not been able to reach. The same way with the issue of titular prints. There are others which have been removed, but others still persist. So I think that maybe that will be the biggest challenge for the incoming Minister of Basic Education, to make sure that these two priorities of scholar transport as well as titular prints are addressed speedily. But the other challenge, of course, is the issue of funding. We know that the government spends a lot of money in the Department of Education, but be that as it may, perhaps the priorities have not been, the priorities of government have not always been focused a lot on the scholar transport as well as titular prints.
So what then for you? I mean, so we have this new administration. I know we could talk about this for half an hour. We don't have that much time. What for you is the single issue that needs the most attention around this issue of walking many kilometers to get to school and the impact that it has on the learners and their education?
I think that the Department of Basic Education should collaborate with the Department of Public Works as well, to make sure that relevant infrastructure is provided where there is a need. Bridges are needed in some of these provinces, such as the Eastern Cape, as well as KZN, where learners sometimes have to cross a river to get into a school. Because the DBE alone may not be able to win this battle. You can provide a bus, but if there are no routes, that really reach the school as such for some of the communities, then it means you have not really done anything.
Okay.
So I think that infrastructure development is very important in this case.
And all I can say is, they must treat it like a crisis, as far as I'm concerned. Hendrik Makaneta, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for that. And related to that, here's a comment saying, it's really unfortunate what happened with the whole granny situation, but my biggest concern is with people who prefer to take videos instead of helping out. Are we really living in this day and age where content is more important than being human? Well, that is such a complex situation. The fact is, if you didn't take the video, you'd not be able to nail the person. So you're being an activist. In fact, the question is, can you stop them? Maybe in this case, maybe it's just two people. Maybe somebody else stopped them. Maybe it's not that person. But sometimes that can be gangs, for example, right? And do we stop them? I mean, I heard a talk today, in fact, at the mosque today, and this imam was making a point to say, we talk about social media being a massive distraction, but in fact, social media, in many ways, has brought down to street level the ability of people to relate the day-to-day occurrences of justice and injustice in society all around the world. So I think that's a really important issue. Let's get some calls. Lenius Mashila on the line. Hi, Lenius.
Ashraf, how are you?
I'm good indeed. Good talking to you. Go ahead.
Yes, Ashraf, I think let's appreciate that Gauteng has got some sort of government, irrespective of reservations of whoever, but at least you have got government, and the people in Gauteng then should expect or knows the offices where they will go to when certain things are not happening. It is a big progress. Ashraf, I have been awake the whole night, last night, paying attention to the British elections. Mm-hmm. And I'm seriously happy about the outcome that the Conservatives have been pushed out because they've been displaying some sort of imperialist tendencies and connected to what is happening in the U.S. with Biden, that he is being seen by his own people that he's too old to actually stand for the office of the president. And that actually assists us, to, especially the moderate people and the revolutionaries in South Africa.
Well, I hear you. Thanks for that. I mean, I hear you. Some may say, by the way, this Conservative Party is very, or rather, this Labour Party is not like the Labour Party that you would do. It's not Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. It's sort of moved to the centre. So it's very, very different from what you may think it is, okay? Whether that's good for the British is another whole conversation that we need to keep an eye on, right? Here's another one. In KwaZulu-Natal, the school's nutrition program suppliers have not been paid and will not supply schools as schools are reopening next week. Please make a follow-up. Got that? And further thoughts on if there's any places in the country where you're experiencing water shortages beyond one day. So I don't mean a one-day flukish water problem because there's a pipe leaking. I'm leaking. I mean, there's a water problem, right? If it is that in your area, I'm so sorry about it, but let us know because we want to absolutely focus on water. It's one of the big issues that we do as a reflection of the national pulse. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. And in the news desk, heading it up, Madupi Makhalamele.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda. The top stories this hour: the MK party to appeal the Kanyile court ruling, and Biden vows to stay in the U.S. presidential race. A very good afternoon. The MK party has vowed to appeal the electoral court ruling on the matter between the IEC and the MK party's interim youth leader, Bonginkosi Kanyile. The firebrand youth leader was slapped with 150,000 rand fine earlier this week for remarks that the judge deemed could cause unrest. In a statement, the party claims that the courts have been captured and serve the interests of specific sectors in society. The MK party says it stands firmly on the belief that it has been unjustifiably found guilty and has rejected the electoral court ruling. It's back to the drawing board for Metal Workers Union NUMSA after the Labour Court earlier granted the Ford Motor Company in Silverton, Pretoria, an interim interdict ordering striking workers to return to work. The strike, which is now in its second day, is over profit sharing at the company, a move opposed by Ford. The employer argues that this is an incentive demand that has already been accommodated in a signed 2022 wage agreement. SAFTU spokesperson Trevor Shaku says they were surprised by the interdict being granted.
We were surprised because NUMSA has done everything procedurally. And procedurally, I mean that they were able to go into the bargaining council, negotiated this issue for 2 years, and eventually went into declared a dispute, and the dispute, of course, was conciliated in the presence of the commissioner. And in the presence of the commissioner, where they failed to find eye to eye.
The Manzini Magistrates Court in the Kingdom of Eswatini has postponed the extradition application for the Ndimande brothers accused of being involved in the killing of Keenan aka Forbes and Tebello Motswane to later this month. This after the defense abandoned its application to be provided with further particulars by the state. Amongst other things, they were demanding to be furnished with the content of the murder case docket. Siyabonga and Malusi Ndimande are wanted in the country for 4 counts of murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. The arguments on the main extradition application will now be heard on the 29th of this month. The first female jockey to compete at the Hollywood Brits at Durban July, Rachel Fenneker, has been dealt a setback. The horse that the 22-year-old was to ride in the main race without question has been withdrawn. Last year, Fenneker was due to compete in the main race, but just days before, she suffered whiplash and a concussion in a freak riding accident. This forced her to withdraw from the race entirely. Gold Circle Events manager Stephen Marshall says earlier this week, the gelding came back lame after practice.
So without question was withdrawn from the race late last night on Thursday evening due to an injury sustained in his final preparation workout. What that means is that the first emergency acceptor, who is Hlui, is brought into the race. Rachel Fenneker, who was guarded to ride without question, fortunately has been given the ride on Hlui, so she doesn't lose her ride, and she still stands to be the first female jockey to ride in the Hollywood Best Durban July on Saturday.
Marshall says, without question's injury does not appear to be serious. He says trainer Justin Snaith, who also trains Fenneker's replacement Luhlua, has decided to rest the 4-year-old gelding. And U.S. President Joe Biden has reasserted his intention to stay in the election race, telling an Independence Day crowd at the White House that he's not going anywhere. As part of efforts to prove his fitness for office after a disastrous debate last week, Biden will sit for a one-on-one interview with one of the big networks as his term ramps up an aggressive campaign schedule amid continued rumblings in the Democratic Party about his need to step aside. Vice President Kamala Harris remains a leading contender to replace Biden at the top of the ticket should he decide to step aside. Our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce Peace.
The 81-year-old president has taken a hit in the post-debate polling, now trailing Trump by significant margins, as Democrats fear a blowout in November if Biden doesn't turn things around by publicly demonstrating his vitality and acuity as he seeks to lead the country for the next 4 years. Mingling with 4th of July crowds at the White House, someone called out to him to keep up the fight. Biden responded, "You got me, man. I'm not going anywhere." But major donors are calling for him to step aside, with some even threatening to withhold donations to the Democratic Party until that happens, as what Biden does and how he does it continues to be under a microscope moving forward. Sherwin Ricebees, SABC News, New York.
The top story at 5, the MK Party has vowed to appeal the Electoral Court ruling on the matter between the IEC and the party's interim youth leader, Bonginkosi Khanyile. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, very good afternoon. Gauteng-wise, the N1 South stays pretty heavily backed up down towards Four Ways. It's a broken down vehicle. It's been there for a while, just before the William Mandela exit, and behind that, the traffic's parking back through to Buccleuch and back down the N3 towards Limbro Park. So that's a really significant backlog. N3 South is pretty slow today from Limbro Park all the way down through to Cement Factory before you're out of that. And the N1 around Pretoria going north is starting to ease. It looks like the big volume might have got through a bit earlier today. Durban bound, leaving Pietermaritzburg. It remains backed up and has been for hours today on this section between Nchanga, Hammersdale and Key Ridge, just through the road construction. I guess bigger volumes on that route into Durban for the July, but it is slow. Also crash near Maytime stores on the M13, so if you're heading to Hillcrest, that's a big queue from the top of Fields Hill, and some heavy pressure heading towards Mhlanga. The N2 being held up by a breakdown before Kwamashu, so going up from Mgeta Road side's very heavy, and the M4, the Ruth First Highway over Blue Lagoon towards Mhlanga, fairly fully loaded as well. And then Cape Town, a crash on the N2 outbound at Jan Smuts Drive, causing big delays out of the city. That collision having an impact on multiple routes. So the N2 is bad, Philip Kosana to the Bend is bad, the M3 coming in from Newlands is heavy, Main Road Lisbeck Parkway out through Observatory towards the N2, and the M5 from Maitland all jammed up going south down the Black River Parkway, trying to get into that N2 outbound queue. Very busy in that part of Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Kolisi thrilled to run out in front of home fans against Ireland, and Euro quarterfinal takes centre stage today. More details at 5:30.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
There's been such a conversation and debate around the future of John Schlopin. I say that John, impeached judge, so impeached former judge, in this case John Schlopin, and whether he should in fact serve on the Judicial Services Commission. Now, there's a school of thought to say he was impeached, but fine, he's been elected and then been nominated, and if he's put in to serve, then let it be. But there's a counter-argument to say, particularly because he was impeached as a judge, not for something else, as a judge, he would be in a position as part of the Judicial Services Commission that he would actually be in a position to influence appointments of other judges. So it's not so much about his acumen and intelligence, it's about other issues, and we should consider that factor. It is an issue, and it certainly has concerned many organizations. In fact, 6 civil society organizations have written to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Toko Didiza, expressing their deep concern about specifically this issue. Now, we have with us Imbekezeli Benjamin, who's a researcher at Judges Matter, which is a watchdog over the judiciary. Imbekezeli, I appreciate your time live on the National Pulse. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Afraf, and good afternoon to the viewers.
Much appreciated. Right. Now, earlier on this morning on the SAFM Sunrise show, Oliver Dixon spoke to Cassex's Dan Mafora about just this issue, and this is what came out of it.
So that argument fails for one reason, right? The JSC, when it appoints judges or when it interviews candidates for judicial office, sits including the politicians, right? Including the National Assembly delegates and the National Council of Provinces delegates. But when it deals with disciplinary matters or complaints of misconduct against judges, those members of the JSC that hold political office, such as the NCOP representatives and the National Assembly representatives and the Minister of Justice, do not sit on the JSC. So we have the JSC, what they call the small JSC, right? The small JSC is only comprised of the judges and the legal professionals that are designated by their bodies. That's the JSC that deals with misconduct. And so this idea that, the politicians of the JSC somehow influence the outcome that came out of his disciplinary process is completely untrue. Okay. And so it isn't true. Of course, the JSE is political in other ways, but in the sense of administering disciplinary procedures for judges, that is simply not true.
Okay, so that's that point. So let me then bring in Mbekazeli Benjamin. I mean, you maybe just pick up, you may wish to comment on what you've just heard?
Yes. Well, Gen Mafura from Kasak is quite correct to say that when the JSC is disciplining judges, it sits without the members of parliament. So it is what is called the small JSC that deals with disciplinary issues. Yes, he is also quite correct to say it was the lawyers and judges on the JSC who decided that Judge Shope was guilty of gross misconduct and should be impeached. So he's correct in that respect. But for us, the concern about members of parliament or any other person who has questions about their ethics being appointed to the Judicial Service Commission and the Magistrates Commission is a broader question. For Judges Matter, it's a question of ethics and credibility, because when you sit on the Magistrates Commission or on the Judicial Service Commission, your role is to select the judges and magistrates who are presiding our courts. So your role is to assess whether people have the right qualifications, whether people have the right ethics. They have been tested on their ethical acumen before they can be judges or magistrates in our courts. So as Judges Matter, we are saying the people who will be testing those ethics of the aspirant judges and magistrates should themselves have no questions about their ethics. So they should be honest people with integrity and credibility, so that those processes to select judges and magistrates themselves are credible and they have the integrity, so that all South Africans can respect them.
Now, I mean, that seems a very obvious statement, to me, that you've just made, right? But is it as obvious as that? Because, I mean, what's now happened in what's likely to happen in practice? I mean, the person has been nominated already, right?
Yes. So the person has been nominated by their political party, and all members have been nominated by their political party. It still needs to be voted on by the National Assembly. So ultimately, it's the National Assembly that takes a decision whether someone can sit on the JSC, but the party simply nominates the person.
And that National Assembly decision, I mean, is it first deliberation and then voted for by the full National Assembly? Because I would think if that's the case, it would then go along the lines of, normally it would be party political, but in this case, it'll be GNU political, isn't it?
Well, not necessarily. What we are saying as Judges Matter is that the Parliament as an institution should be able to decide on who will represent Parliament on the JSC. So Parliament as an institution, now we're calling on members of Parliament beyond their party political lines. We're asking for them to look at this decision very carefully, and only those members who are fit enough, who qualify from an ethical standpoint, who would be fit enough to represent them in Parliament. Yes, it might end up being on party political lines, but we wish that even those who don't necessarily belong to what is now called the GNU, even beyond those members of Parliament, they should also be quite serious in who they choose to represent Parliament on the JSC and the Magistrates Commission. I don't want to keep the Magistrates Commission out of this conversation, because that body also plays a really important role in our judiciary.
Okay, so let's say Parliament deliberates and the National Assembly then votes, and for whatever reason they are convinced enough to have John Slope then in as one of the Judicial Services Commission members, right? What then happens next? Meaning, where would organizations like yours and KSEC and others fit in on this one? Would you still challenge that?
Well, for us, and I can only speak for Judges Matter, we will be terribly disappointed because, as you know, in the last Parliament, the Zondo Commission was very clear about how Parliament should exercise oversight and should hold the other arms of state accountable. And for Parliament to do so, obviously, it needs to be quite careful in who represents Parliament. It needs to set the standard for all other arms of state. And so for us, it will be terribly disappointing and, in fact, a betrayal of the Zondo Commission if Parliament would select people who have ethical questions around them. But we also there's nothing that is stopping us as NGOs or any other person who wants to challenge this decision in court, because there is an argument to say it would be irrational for a Parliament to send someone who has ethical questions around them to go on and assess other people and their ethics. There is an irrationality that is there.
And has there been a precedent set on this type of issue before in South Africa and maybe in other parts of the world, something very similar?
Well, in South Africa, there is an example of Parliament deciding not to send certain people to the Magistrates Commission or the Judicial Service Commission. So in 2019, the National Council of Provinces was selecting who should go and represent the council on the Magistrates Commission. And there was an objection by the DA to say, you can't just send a list of 4 names from one political party to represent the National Council. So what they proposed was that there should be more diverse representation. So members of opposition parties should also form part of the delegation. So that at that point, there was a vote taken. Unfortunately, they didn't win the vote, but it was an example of Parliament exercising its powers to decide on who becomes a member of the JSC, of the Magistrates Commission, that is. In Kenya, a similar exercise is done where Parliament in Kenya decides who represents the Parliament on the JSC in Kenya, and there the Parliament has decided quite carefully on who sits on the JSC. But again, South Africa and the process that we have for appointing judicial officers is unique in the world. Other countries follow South Africa as an example. Kenya, for example, from about 2013, they started to follow the South African model because of they believed it was more legitimate. So there is a huge risk that other countries are looking at South Africa, and the credibility of the JSC declining is actually a credibility question on our country. So there's also that aspect to look at it.
And you have got us with lots to think about, and we've got a whole weekend to think about it before the drama begins or continues again, going into extra time, if not injury time next week. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated, Mbekazeli Benjamin, a researcher at Judges Matter. Wonder what you think about it. In fact, I've just put through a poll on the Twitter space, and we'll get it on, I'll get SFM Radio to share that as well, so you can see it. Vote now in terms of what do you think? I mean, should John Sloper be allowed to serve on the Judicial Services Commission, never mind that he's been impeached, or is the case compelling for him not to be anywhere near that? I mean, you tell me what you think about that one, right? I'll take your calls as well. There's lots of WhatsApp comments, and I'll pick that up right after this.
Here he comes. Hello, guys. You're so dramatic. Hey, Bo, it's not me. It's the extra styling kit, the leather seats with the red finish. It's the tow bar, all coming standard with my red Isuzu badge. Wow, now that is extra.
Why be standard when you can get the all-new Isuzu D-Max X-Rider from just 8,742 Rand. Prime less 3.5%, 0% deposit, 40% balloon, and 72 months to pay. Get yours today. Finance is subject to approval. Isuzu Finance, a product of Westbank, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Can you flex your musical skills? Fuse together the traditional music beats and mix them with modern sounds. Listen up. If you are a Maskandi, Skatameya, Afrofusion, or Umbankanga artist, the brand new show Ushuni Womhlaba is looking for you. Auditions are coming to your city. Gauteng, 22 to 23 June, Mai, Eastern Cape, 29 to 30 June, Lusikisiki Health Resource Center, Mpumalanga, 6 to 7 July, Emalahleni Civic Theatre, KZN, 13 to 14 July, The Playhouse Company. Auditions start at 8 a.m. Ushuni Womhlaba, proudly brought to you by SABC1. Zanzi, for sure.
The inaugural Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking Conference will take place from 10 to 12 July 2024 in Cape Town under the theme Africa Unlocked, Unlocking Africa's Growth. Tune in to The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga and The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda to get insights from the conference. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's get some calls. We've had some comments on the issues of the teenager assaulting the granny. Remember that?
Hello, Ashraf. This is Brian from Cape Town here. Regarding the issue of the teenager assaulting his grandmother, allegedly, obviously the boy has been arrested and everything, and he's been charged and is going through the court process. But I'm just wondering, the person who was filming the whole thing, what was going through their mind? Where do you get because everyone's talking about the child, but no one is focusing on that there was someone else in the room filming all of this and not doing anything to stop it. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, I hear you. It's something that's been asked before. I hope we never in those situations, where the feel for the dramatic to say, at least I must share it, But again, if that didn't happen, sounds rather bizarre. If there's no video footage, is there a chance that the youngster would be arrested? Then it's a case of who's going to take them to court, for example. Think about that one too. Let's get another comment on the JSC rather. Temba, hi. Temba in Gqeberha.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Good to connect with you. Go ahead. What's your point?
Look, Ashraf, I'm disappointed by Judges Matter and any NGO that is against Stop sitting in the JSE.
Right.
At first, they seem to be elevating themselves beyond anyone else, because the first hurdle is for any member qualifying into being a member of parliament. Stop qualified as a South African. No criminal record. He has never been sentenced. And it's upon his party to put him forward for JSE, because he's a member. It's only members of parliament who can sit in the JSE together with other judges assessing the suitability of the judges, aspiring judges, as I said. Now, because of Shope, that he has been found, his ethics being on the other side by them, not everybody is convinced by what had happened, but it's there. Now, Shope qualifies to be a member of parliament, and certainly he qualifies to sit in the JSE. Because representation in the JSE or any committee of parliament is decided on proportionality, on how you perform on elections. Now, they want parliament to vote, ultimately vote. But how DA, ANC, and all those that are in GNU are one block, they will get one representation.
Well, that's what I expect. I hear what you're saying. It is very complex. You're right. Something qualifies John Slope to be in Parliament in the first place. So there's no question about him being an MP. The question is now what happens next. I think the argument from the legal fraternity specifically that he has to preside over issues around the legal fraternity issues as opposed to doing something else. And that's where it's going to be complex. But I'll leave it at that. That's an issue that's going to be developed, I'm sure, all of next week. Thank you for your call, Temba. Have a magic weekend, all right? Okay, let's talk about an African language app after this.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right. In fact, we're talking African languages more than twice, or certainly more than once today. So, 2 young children have inspired the person we're talking to next, which is Mukondle Terry Dumela, who's the founder of Angula, which is the company that created the Makhlakhle app, right? And I understand that at its core, it's an African language app. So let's find out more about it as part of this innovation feature that we do every day around this time, right? Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so 2 young children have inspired you. What have you done?
Yeah, so we've actually built an app to teach kids African languages. It's meant for kids between the age of 2 and 8 years old. It was inspired by my daughter, as you mentioned. She's turning 3 months in a couple of months. So I've just seen her interest in learning, but also struggling to develop vocabulary. So I decided that it would be appropriate to try build an app that can assist with that.
Okay, so what are you doing in practical terms then?
Yeah, so people download the app. We teach 4 basic vocabulary at the moment, which is kingship, colors, numbers, issues around time and body parts and animals. So you basically take this interactive app that you go through. It shows them cards, pictures. It also helps them to pronounce the words as shown on the app.
So how does that differ? I hear you talk about pronunciation. You know, we spoke to the guys from Google early on, and they have 9 South African languages, so 9 South African languages on their Google Translate. Would this not be something that duplicates or overlaps into that?
No, so with this one, it's meant to actively teach the language. With translators, they are meant for people who are looking to translate items. So you would need to know what to translate. So, for instance, for a child, there's no way that they would know what to look for. It's something that you need to package for them. But that's what we've built here, which is to go out and look for the words which are crucial for a child to learn at that early stage and package it in an app and present it in an interactive and fun way for them to engage with.
Okay, so give me some examples of the fun way that the app does engage with them.
Yeah, so one lesson card, for example, it plays a sound for you, so it can say one in one of the African languages that we teach, and you need to select a picture that matches with the sound.
Okay, that sounds really good. So it's already, the app is available now, right?
Yeah, we actually launched it 4 days ago, and the reception from the public has been amazing. We've actually been trending on top 5 on the Apple App Store on the education category for yesterday and today as well.
Okay, wow. Okay, I need to download it and see what I can learn from that. I think absolutely. What has been the response so far? Not just in terms of downloads, but in terms of, people, obviously you want feedback. What are they saying about the app?
A lot of people are quite excited about it. They do want us to expand our vocabulary to include everyday things that are used in the household. We will take action in that regard. But people are quite hungry for this type of apps, and I'm quite happy to see the kind of feedback that we've received.
How important is this? I'm just thinking it was inspired by your daughter. Just think of the absence of you being inspired by your need for your daughter. Meaning there's such a vacuum, isn't it, in terms of people learning African languages, especially young children?
Yeah, there's such a huge space, unfortunately, as technology is developing. It's the one area that seems to be still lagging behind. Personally, I've been working on this sort of problems for the past 10 years. I also worked on a project called Shitsonga.org, which was to bring the Shitsonga language online, as it's one of the minority languages in South Africa. So there's such a huge void when it comes to issues of African languages. And part of what we're trying to do is to bridge that gap by building practical tools that people can use in their everyday lives, either to learn African languages or to translate, as you mentioned, with Google Translator.
Okay, and obviously it goes without saying that you've got the knowledge and experience to do just that in terms of building the app. So well done to you. I'm certainly going to check it out. Mahlatle app, Mahlahle, and I'm going to suggest that the nation, since this is a national pulse, they all need to go out and download now. That's an instruction. Hopefully they'll take the instruction. Feel free to, by the way, tweet some of the links that you may have around the further information and the app to SFM Radio and to myself as well. Much appreciate your time. There we are. Certainly like that, don't you? Mukondle Terry Dumela with that app. He's the founder of a company called Angula, right? Sounds like Angola, but Angula. Right, let's get the news headlines now. It's 5:30 with Madubi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, Disaster Management in Cape Town has urged the public to stay clear of high-risk areas like steep slopes, riverbanks, and areas prone to flooding, as heavy rains are expected to make landfall on Sunday. The MK party has vowed to appeal the electoral court ruling on the matter between the IEC and the party's interim youth leader, Bonginkosi Kanyile. And it's back to the drawing board for Metal Workers Union NUMSA after the Labour Court earlier granted the Ford Motor Company in Silverton, Pretoria, an interim interdict ordering striking workers to return to duty. A full news update, 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still quite slow on the run through Midrand today. The N1 jamming from Buccleuch up as far as about sort of New Road territory now. After that, it is moving, although there's just been a crash up by Boerta Avenue. So all of a sudden you get a bit of fresh air and then you're pretty much back into the traffic from John Foster Drive. Once you get past Boerta Avenue, there's a little bit of a queue going through to Rigel Avenue as well today. Durban, a whole pile of traffic in the greater Durban area. A lot going there slowly as well. Cliffdale through the roadworks, Durban bound very slow. Big traffic up towards Mhlanga, whether you're on the M4, that is solid over Blue Lagoon, all the way through towards the M41, or the N2, still being held by a breakdown heading north at Kumashu, so that's quite a pile-up from Umgena Road side. The N3 outbound is slower, breakdown at Pavilion Mall, and that collision at Maytime on the M13, still slowing traffic from the top of Fields Hill out through Kloof towards the Hillcrest area. Cape Town, for a Friday, very unusual to be stuck in heavy traffic coming out of the CBD. It was an earlier crash today on the N2 outbound at Jan Smuts Drive. That's been cleared up probably about 15 minutes ago. But it's there Philip Kusana and Nelson Mandela Boulevard's heavy coming out of the CBD towards Hospital Bend. Hopefully that'll move through soon. And Chapman's Peak Drive, I just got a note through ahead, interestingly, of next week's big rain. Chapman's Peak Drive, which has been closed for 2, maybe 3 weeks now, has just been reopened. Interesting. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Well, earlier on we spoke about the Springboks against Ireland, but there's also the Proteas women in action. So, Tumi, tell us all about it.
Well, the Proteas women posted 189 for 4 in their 20 overs. Tasman Brits top scored with 81 of 56 deliveries. And remember, India won the toss and they elected to bowl first. Currently, India bowling sitting on 43 for no loss in the 4th over. They currently need 147 runs in 96 balls to win in their first of 3 T20s. Meanwhile, former South Africa fast bowler Charles Langeveld has been appointed as Zimbabwe's men's national team bowling coach. SA's Ravish Goband and Kurtley Diesel will also join Zimbabwe as a strategic performance coach and strength and conditioning coach, respectively. In rugby, Springbok captain Siya Kolisi says that he's thrilled to return to South African shores for their toughest challenge since winning the Rugby World Cup in France, facing Ireland in Pretoria for the first of 3 Castle Lager incoming series matches. The Bucks have not beaten Ireland since 2016, and they toppled South Africa in the world rankings if they managed to beat the Springboks by more than 15 points. Kolisi was delighted to be bestowed with the honour of retaining the captaincy, but he has stressed that it will be definitely a grueling battle. Meanwhile, 6 players will make their debuts for the Willie Engelbrecht captain Western Province in the Currie Cup clash with the Bulls in Cape Town on Sunday. The DHL Western Province began their Currie Cup campaign with the North-South Showdown, which kicks off at 3 p.m. on Sunday at the DHL Stadium. John Dobson said that while there are a few players pulling on the blue and white jersey for the first time, there's still a pleasing amount of experience around the match day squad. Then in football, the Euro quarterfinals take centre stage today with the host nation Germany to lock horns with Spain to kick off the business end of the tournament. They are the 2 most successful nations in Euro's history with 3 titles each, and so far the tournament's 2 highest scoring teams, with Germany on 10 goals and Spain on 9. And the big talk is around Toni Kroos, who looks to hang up his boots after the Euros. And should Germany win this tournament, then he could technically become the first German to win the Euros while not contracted to a club. And kickoff is at 6 p.m. It'll be interesting to see who's going to win in that match. But there's also another interesting one where Portugal faces France at 9 p.m. That's where Kylian Mbappe will be coming up against his idol Ronaldo. I actually saw a very interesting picture, a portrait of Mbappe and Ronaldo hugging each other.
I saw that.
Do you see? Oh, it looks so beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
And I think there's a great respect for each other. Certainly the younger Mbappe versus the legends, like total respect.
Absolutely.
Not on the football field, they're going to be against each other.
And also the fact that Ronaldo also supports him.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice. Then SASCOC have confirmed 27 additional names to Team South Africa for the Paris Olympics. The list includes the Blitzboks, who qualified for the Paris Olympics. in Monaco. Team SA is looking to compete in 19 of the 32 Olympic sports on offer. And then also British Open champion and SA female golfer Ashley Buhai will make her Olympic debut. Then in tennis, Jasmine Paolini is through to the fourth round of Wimbledon for the first time after beating Bianca Andreescu 7-6 and 6-1. Well, that's it. It is a wrap from my side. I am Dumin Khabele.
So what's the one game you're looking forward to tomorrow? Well, today, tomorrow, next, I don't mean the preview like you personally.
I'm definitely looking forward to Portugal versus France.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, definitely looking forward to the Springboks doing well this weekend. That I'm definitely looking forward to.
I asked you for one, you gave me two.
I had to.
Just very confusing.
You. Which one are you looking forward to?
I could actually give you three as well. No, I think it would be tonight's game. Yeah, the Portugal-France one in particular. So that's the 9 o'clock kickoff.
9 o'clock, yeah.
Then if you ask me tomorrow, I'll tell you Springboks Ireland. But that's tomorrow's conversation. Yeah.
All right, then. Mudi Mukio.
Life gets too busy, and SABC Sport gets it. That's why we're bringing you Final Analysis, the sole destination to fill you in on all sport action that goes down every weekend. This is a premium Sunday night wrap-up show, giving match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers.
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get the money issues on the last working day of the week with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, hi from the, MoneyWeb Market Update. I must say that, MoneyWeb Market Update. Yeah, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. It's been an interesting week. We're closing out the week in slightly negative territory, but there are some positives to look at. We'll start with local markets. They are now closed at the moment, and then we'll move on to some of the international counters. Locally, the all-share closed out in negative territory, 0.4% in the red, with the top 40 down 1/3%. Financials were down about 0.85%, losing about 160-odd index points, with industrials down 0.69, just under 0.7%. That being said, resources came to the party. They were up. They were the only counter that finished up, while a lot of the sub-indices finished in the negative. Resources 0.8% in the green. If we have a look at some of the companies that did well, while we are looking at the company side of it, resources obviously leading the charge there with Amplats, Implats, Anglo all finishing up 2%. Equitas, Harmony, Northam also all doing 2% in the green. Vodacom was up about 1.6%, and Sibanye was up about 1.3%. Companies that didn't do so well today, Santam was down 2.7%, Nedbank down 2.6%, Sasol down 2%, Sanlam down 2%, Kumba down 3.7%, PSG Financial was down 3.6%. So clearly the financial stocks leading the downside movements while the miners led the upside movements. If we look at some of the currency movements, the Rand looks to be around 18 Rand 20 against the dollar at the moment, gaining ever so slightly from where it was around this time yesterday. The Euro at 19 Rand 71, the Pound at 23 Rand 31, sort of flat from the Rand's perspective. But the major things that drove markets in the late afternoon period were obviously those data points from the U.S. We'd been waiting for non-farms numbers and the U.S. unemployment rate. We expected an unemployment rate of 4%. It came in at 4.1%. This is the first time where you see, well, it's not the first time, but one of the few times where you see negative news being exceptionally positive for the markets. Off the back of that higher unemployment figure, the U.S. markets rallied. The gold price rallied a full percent. It's at about $2,385 an ounce here. Platinum is at $1,047. Palladium $1,039. Brent crude around $87.91 a barrel. But U.S. markets and U.S. stocks were up. The Nasdaq was up 0.2%. It's still up 0.2% because they are still trading. They missed out on trading yesterday. They had Independence Day celebrations going on. The S&P up 0.25%, and that looks to be very, very positive territory for U.S. markets. We're now pricing in the likelihood that interest rates will come sooner rather than later, because it was something that Fed Chair Jerome Powell had cautioned to say the rest of the market might not be looking so healthy, and that's a concern for them, and so it might force their hand in terms of interest rate cuts. Obviously, that's exactly what the market wanted to see in terms of the data that came out today. If we do a quick summary of what happened in earlier trade in terms of European and Asian markets, we'll start with Asian markets. They were all in the red throughout the day. Sydney closed down 0.1%, Hong Kong down 1.2%, mainland China down 0.25%, and the Nikkei flat to slightly in the red. European markets, bit of a mixed bag there. The FTSE down about 0.2%, the CAC down 0.3%, and the DAX in Germany finishing flat to marginally in the green. So it looks as though markets are really, really dissecting what's been happening within the US picture, but also what to expect going forward now that, of course, that interest rate conversation comes into focus again. So we'll keep an eye on these and other developments going into next week. Obviously, data points like inflation and GDP output from the U.S. will then start to see if that matches this data. And if we start to see a consistent pattern of data points that point to a slowing down of the U.S. economy, we could be in for rate cuts. We're excited for rate cuts. We're looking forward to rate cuts because it relieves the pressure that we've been under for the longest time. But we'll have to wait until next week to find out whether this is where we're going. For now, we'll leave it at that, and we'll cross back to you and the team, Ashraf, and we'll be back next week.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, thanks for that, Jimmy. You have a great weekend. We're going to get to some calls now. By the way, there's a fascinating campaign put together called the Bill of Tweets. What is the Bill of Tweets? In many ways, I think it relates to the Constitution, but don't take my word for it. We're going to find out more about the Bill of Tweets campaign coming up around 10 to 6. Listen out for that. Let's get some calls now. Imbambo in Nkandla, hello.
Hello, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Good to connect with you. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm the first. This is my first time calling you on this show.
Well, I'm glad you are. Thank you.
Hey,
welcome.
I'm so happy. Yeah, but what I do follow you up every day, and I do appreciate the way you present this show, because there's one most important thing you do. You don't force your idea to us. You just put the idea, and then people they just talk. Thank you for that.
Well, appreciate. I mean, look, we ask questions, we challenge, but I mean, ultimately, you and I, as we talk now, you can walk away having a completely different view from me, and that's fine. And ultimately, what I like is the fact that we actually can engage on air, because your view, my view, and everybody else collectively effectively contributes to what I call the national pulse. We get a feel of the nation by having this conversation. So much appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. On the actual thing what I want to talk about, it's I think I need to correct it. It's about the case of MK withdrawal.
Yeah.
So I think there is the report which has been going on is not a correct one, but because now what happened, I do feel more, especially when the media reports, there are some people or some cases that they do normally favor, or when they report it. On this case, they say the case has been withdrawn, but actually they said it's a provisionally withdrawn. So what did they say? They say that because the Constitutional Court ruling has asked them about those 22 parties. So they said it will be wrong for them to take it to the court with those 22 parties. So they were required to separate by naming them all, with giving the names, which are those 22 parties. Then what did they say? Well, once they correct that mistake, they are going to put it back to the court.
Okay.
Maybe next week.
I hear you. We're going to move on. I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right in terms of you see the initial point in terms of the legality. It is like it's been withdrawn. So that's correct. They did withdraw it, and that's what the media has reported on. Remember, the media doesn't make the news. The media can only report on the news. So there was a withdrawal. Then I see after that there was a follow-up press release from the MK party suggesting that that's the first point. They obviously reconsidering their position. And when they finally do that, I'm sure the media will report it on again. So, now from now till then, we can't do much at all because there's no further case until they present it once again. Then we'll take it from there. Thanks for that call. Much appreciated, right? Let's get to Vuyo is it Vuyo in Europe? Where in Europe,
Yes,
Vuyo?
can you hear me nice and clear?
Yeah, thank you. Where are you? Where's Europe?
No, I don't like to share it because I don't want the Chikolosha to follow me.
Okay, so you're part of the Greater European Union, so somewhere in Europe, right? Thanks for that, Vuyo. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
Please, before I say, because it's not easy to get to SAFM, can I pass the small message to Minister of Home Affairs before my main point?
Very quick, 30 seconds.
Yes. I applied for the full best that is needed for me to register in this country. For the 4 years, I haven't received anything. I wish they can allocate people to do with international matters. Okay.
All right, got that? Yeah, thank you.
The person who was taking the video is another grandchild who is young, who cannot fight for Gogo. So the grandchild was hurtful with all the abuse. That's why he took the video, and that's how Gogo got help.
Well, that's my point. Then imagine if, obviously, the person with the video could not challenge the bigger guy. It's very obvious, right? But
And
that
the
video
young man,
is
I can
an
tell you now,
important
he
point.
doesn't have a father figure. Because if he knew that his father is going to move him for moving Gogo, he wouldn't do that. It's an anger issue or he's highly on drugs.
Well, there you are.
It's a sad thing because really, the young men, they don't respect the elders. And the new thing that they're doing now, that is shocking. When they see the elderly, the woman coming from the shebeen on a weekend, they'll stand in a queue to rate the elderly person. It's an in thing now.
And it's
The
terrible.
things that are doing something wrong with our society.
Well, there is something wrong. Absolutely. Vuyo, thanks for that call. As far as I tell you what, send WhatsApp your details about the Home Affairs issue. Let's see if we can find out more about it for you, okay? Just WhatsApp it in terms of your issues, right? You never know what may come out of it. Vuyo from Europe, somewhere in Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Central Europe, I don't know, but I'm not going to tell you, somewhere in Europe. Right, there's lots of other comments, again, on the same issue about the video, right? Yeah.
Hi, Ashraf. The person who took the video of this young guy assaulting the old lady, why didn't that person who was taking the video try and stop this guy instead of taking the video? I mean, he could have killed this old lady. Errol.
Thanks for that, Errol. I think you've heard that the previous caller's response, and it could well be ditto around it. Let me see if I've got time for another message. In fact, there's another one, and again, it relates to the video.
Hi, Ashraf, and good afternoon to all FMSA listeners. Ashraf, I was really disturbed when I saw that video. And I didn't check. When I check again, it was I don't know. But the funny thing is, when I listened to the story, this lady went to the police, arrest him. He went to court, but the family don't cooperate with the police. They don't even open a case against that lady. That's a pain thing. Now, what you must do if something like that, the family don't want to work with police, and then what now?
Well, I hear
Honorable Makoha Kobana, thanks.
Thank you. I think it's a common and very complex problem when it comes to families. There's an issue, and then when it means taking it to court, then people tend to withdraw. And the reasons are pretty obvious. It's family, right? Okay, I think we've done with those. Let me just see if there's one other one I can play around political behavior.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mr. Flock says we reward the politicians' behavior. We don't. Like, for example, in Gauteng, we voted DA, some of us, and then look what's happening now. It's like we never even voted. We were not even part of the votes. I mean, we have no say. But anyway, I don't think it's our fault. We don't reward their behavior. It's their cronies and their beneficiaries. They are very clever. They are cunning. They will reward the behavior, and then you think it's everybody that likes it. We are not monolithic. We are not a homogeneous group. We are so divided. It's sad.
Okay, well, there you are. Interesting one. Well, I think he related to rewarding them in terms of so many likes, and I mean, that's what they want. They know that it's driven by the high levels of engagement on social media. All right, maybe talking about that, a good way to end the show is to talk about the Bill of Tweets, 50 relatable tweets using local slang. I'm interested. Let's find out.
In South Africa, 1 in 5 children under the age of 13 is overweight or obese. Sign a petition to demand strong warning labels on unhealthy packaged food. And don't forget to catch the next episode of Chew on This at healer.org on Thursday, 27 June from 3 p.m. Young people tell us how big food companies are feeding them lies.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, let's find out about the Bill of Tweets. What does that mean? And why is that important? There's a hashtag called Bill of Tweets, and you can check it out. But let's find out more about what the story is behind the story with Mbali Baduza, who's the CEO of We the People South Africa. Mbali, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf, and welcome back.
Absolutely, right. So what is the Bill of Tweets?
So the Bill of Tweets is a campaign that was inspired by a shocking stat in 2018 from a study that said only 51% of South Africans had heard about the Constitution but had no idea what it meant. And recognizing that, young people under the age of 35 are the majority of this country, we should find a way to be able to speak to them. And why not translate the Bill of Rights into a language that they can understand, and that's through tweets.
Now, just to repeat that last part, I lost you there.
I was saying, what better way to engage with young people by translating the Bill of Tweets, the Bill of Rights into the Bill of Tweets.
So
Yeah.
do I take it that tweet is literally, you got 10 or 12 actual tweets so that people see one-liners that would encapsulate the Bill of Rights into one, solid piece of paper. Effectively, that's what it is.
Yeah. In fact, if you don't mind, I can give you some examples.
Yeah, do that.
So, the property clause talks about how everybody has the right to property that is not arbitrarily deprived from them. So how do we tell the young generation that? We say, your dladla, your kingdom. Property rights are tight in SA. Asukuvaleli ngaphandle. Hashtag property rights. Hashtag idlala. Another one is, your freedom of expression. So how do we explain that to young people? We say, speak your truth. Spread your steez. But remember, it's rated E for everybody. No throwing shade. Hashtag freedom of expression. Hashtag rated E for everybody. And the last one I'd like to share is around the equality clause. Everybody is equal before the law. So how do we explain that to young people? We say, all the chomies in SA are equal. No one's left in the cold. The Constitution is holding it down for us. Hashtag equality, hashtag same WhatsApp group. So what you see here is we are demystifying the Bill of Rights in fun and creative ways so that young people, particularly, the Gen Zs, can find meaning in them. so that they can own and protect these rights as well as the Constitution.
Well, I love the language. First of all, I tend to use the word chommy very often, and I really do. And the other day I argued on air here to say, honestly, this thing about honourable in Parliament just doesn't work. Particularly, first of all, it takes too long because there's every second line is honourable. And secondly, why can't it just be chommies and just talk to each other on first name basis? So I hear you, but okay. But the broader issue is this: you obviously want to demystify for them to buy into it. Who are you targeting? What sort of age group are you targeting here?
So we're targeting young people, particularly the Gen Zs, so Ama 2K in other words. And the reason why is because, all they know of politics and the Constitution is what we've experienced in the past 10, 15 years. And it's not our best showing, right? And they also don't have the same sentimental attachment as older generations do to the Constitution because it was a product of struggle. They weren't there. So this way, trying to speak to them in a way that they can relate allows them to engage with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in ways that they can use now and for future generations. So the idea is to educate young people about the Constitution.
Okay, I've argued the point in the build-up to the election that I think 90%, maybe 97% of the people in the country don't ever read the full Constitution. I don't even think they read more than 1 or 2 pages at most. Okay, so I think we in sync with that part, which then gets me wondering, why would you not have launched this campaign in the build-up to the election as opposed to post the election?
So we did. This campaign actually started during the Human Rights Festival, where we launched it at Constitutional Hill, and there the idea was just to start drumming up awareness around, hey, actually you have rights, and we even held a staged protest where we invited young people to walk the streets of Johannesburg with an issue that's close to them, and we printed the Bill of Tweets to make that available, and they picked the issues that were relevant to them. But then we realized after the elections, we need to drum more support about this. We need to educate more people about it.
Maybe more so after the election, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. And 2026, the Constitution will be turning 30. And we want people to engage with the Constitution, being more informed than they are now.
Well, if you need to know, I know about it because the first tweet I saw came from Catherine Constantinides. Just so that you know that, right? That's where the awareness came from for me. It's like, okay, that's interesting, and that's where we suggested we talk about it. So lastly, where do people find it? I mean, I find it on Twitter. Where would others find it if younger people are looking for these Bill of Tweets?
So they could follow us at We the People SA. They could find us on Twitter, like you said, on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook. But a really good resource is our website at wethepeoplesa.org. And if you follow us, you'll have the Constitution in your back pocket.
So, and you say in the back pocket, like literally like a piece of paper? Is that what you're saying?
I know, if it's on your phone, that's good enough.
Okay, but maybe both ways. I suppose their phones are their back pockets now, so that makes sense to me. Yeah. Just the last thing in like 30 seconds. What's been the response?
It's been incredible, particularly from people who thought that the Constitution was too legal. We find that they are now engaging with the content because they understand what it says. They understand that the Constitution is for them. It was written for them. And we're seeing a lot of engagement, especially on Twitter.
Okay, and that's where we're going to leave it. I certainly will check it out with a lot more intention after we chat now. Mbali Baduza, the CEO of We the People South Africa, much appreciate your time. But check out that hashtag and all that it stands for, hashtag Bill of Tweets, and you'll be very interested in that. In terms of the team, it's been great. I mean, you're part of the team. You're the audience. You engage with me all throughout the week. I cannot talk on my own. I need you to be part of it, and I know you are. So thank you for listening. Thanks for engaging. You can do that even throughout the week. Off air, just tweet me, Facebook me, Instagram me, LinkedIn me. I don't know, whatever it is, you can do that. Use that hashtag as well, the National Pulse. And to the team in Tando, to me, Tebogo Vusani, as well as Temba, that puts it all together. Much appreciated as we all have a great weekend. Now, lots to come on the show, still to come. We know there's sport coming up after 7, I think it is. There's no business, being 6 o'clock. So Michael talks sport. Oliver Dixon is going to do something I've never done in my life before. Host a show in the morning and then host a show the the same day at 6 o'clock. It's called a double header. We'll see how he copes with all of that. Let's get the news first. It's 6 o'clock with Madubi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Safe travels. The top stories this hour, a weather warning issued for